Chapter 225. At that moment, Chu Xiu stood there with his sword in hand. The crimson blade was wrapped in black mist, and there was not even the slightest emotion in his eyes. He looked at the people from the divine martial sect as if he was looking at a group of dead people. In the past, Chu Xiu would forcibly suppress the demonic qi in his body after using the 3 cuts of Avicii. However, this time, Chu Xiu did not continue to suppress the demonic qi. Instead, he allowed it to surge in his body. Looking at the people from the Divine Force sect, Chu Xiu's voice was extremely cold, without the slightest emotion. It was so stiff that it was like a mechanical puppet. I'm not good at saving people, but I'm good at killing people. Since you're all tired of living, then I'll fulfill your wish. I'll let you be the role models of loyalty to the sect. Another old man from the Divine Force sect looked at Chu Xiu and the corpse on the ground, dumbfounded. He even suspected that what he saw was an illusion. Chu Xiu was a physical invulnerability expert, but he killed a 3-flower realm martial artist with a single slash. If this kind of thing was said by someone else, others would definitely think it was nonsense. However, the result was right before their eyes. Not only could the people from the Divine Force sect not accept it, but even the other martial artists present were shocked. When Chu Xiu did not move, they all came with the mood to watch the show. However, when Chu Xiu moved, everyone's expression changed. With this kind of strength, let alone the top 20 on the Longhu leaderboard, he could probably stand shoulder to shoulder with the top 10 or even the top 5, right? Seeing this scene, everyone subconsciously retreated, opening up some distance between them. Mo Tianlin murmured, "No wonder Uncle Qi, the King of Annals consecrator, lost to him. As expected, this Chu Xiu probably has the strength to fight against the 3-flower realm. No. It should be said that he can instantly kill most 3-flower realm martial artists." Xiao Lu looked at Chu Xiu, raised his eyebrows, and said, "Uncle Qi, who was guarding the 7th floor of the Dragon Gathering Pavilion, also lost to him? But don't be surprised by Chu Xiu's strength. Sometimes a fight depends on the brain. This Chu Xiu's brain is not inferior to his martial arts. Do you really think he can kill those with 3-flower realm at one's prominence like killing chickens? It was just a show of strength. In terms of aura, he had already suppressed the divine martial sect. Although he was alone, his aura was stronger than the dozen people from the divine martial sect. Those people from the Divine Force sect have already lost their morale. Facing Chu Xiu, they are all afraid. Those who have cowardice in their hearts, no matter how strong they are, have already been defeated before the battle even started. Xiao Lu himself was an expert with the blade. Different from the sword, the blade was tyrannical and focused on imposing manner. Chu Xiu's blade not only made his own imposing manner stand at the peak, but it also cut off all of the opponent's imposing manner. At this time, the people from the Divine Force sect in the field were indeed as Xiao Lu had guessed. Under Chu Xiu's stunning and even frightening blade, their courage had been cut off, and they were afraid. This was completely different from the script they had imagined. The demonic qi around Chu Xiu had not dissipated, and he walked toward the group of people from the Divine Force sect with a terrifying demonic qi and death intent. In this world, you can't wake up a person who is pretending to be asleep, nor can you stop a person who is courting death. Originally, I didn't want to kill before the God Weapon Conference began. Since you guys are courting death, then I will fulfill your wish. It will also help my blade sharpen." Chu Xiu's voice was gloomy and cold, without the slightest emotion. At this time, his entire body was being corroded by the demonic qi of the 3 blades of Avicii, but Chu Xiu did not have the slightest intention of suppressing it. After using the 3 sabers of Avicii for such a long time, Chu Xiu was also constantly familiarizing himself with the power of this saber. He was also constantly familiarizing himself with the power of the backlash. Now, he was confident that he could suppress the backlash from the 2nd saber. The most important thing was that when he listened to Taoist Xian Cheng's sermon just now, he had some enlightenment. Cutting off the inner ape to become Wukong. Now the demonic qi's backlash affected Chu Xiu's mind, causing his heart to be filled with hatred and demonic qi, turning him into a demon ape. In the past, Chu Xiu's method was to use his own mental power and the inner lion seal to forcibly destroy the power of the backlash. This ensured that he would not be affected by the power of the 3 blades of Avicii. But now, Chu Xiu had another idea. Whether it was the inner demon or the inner ape, it was something that belonged to him. Why did he have to destroy it instead of subduing it and using it for his own use? What Taoist Xian Chang talked about was the 5 qis collecting in mind, not martial arts. Therefore it could be applied everywhere. Even though Chu Xiu had not yet reached the 3 flowers at one's prominence realm, it did not hinder Chu Xiu from comprehending and using it. Right now, Chu Xiu was doing this. He treated the demonic chi's backlash as a part of his body. No matter how the demonic chi affected his mind, he tried his best to empty it to the extreme. At this moment, Chu Xiu's heart was like an 8 trigrams furnace, refining his inner ape. No matter how strong the demonic chi was, it could only be used as fuel for this 8 trigrams furnace, allowing Chu Xiu to completely subdue the inner ape. The others could not see anything from Chu Xiu's current state, but Taoist Xian Cheng, who was standing at the back, frowned and mumbled. He only heard it once, and he understood the principle of subduing the inner ape. This kind of comprehension is very rare among the younger generation. Unfortunately, he walked the wrong path. No, it should be said that he knew he was walking the wrong path, but he still chose to walk it. Taoist Xian Cheng shook his head, feeling a little conflicted. Listening to his sermon, Chu Xiu comprehended the principle, and then immediately started killing. Did this count as indirectly killing? It seemed like he had to keep a low profile in the future. He couldn't say these things in public. At this moment, Chu Xiu walked towards the people from the Divine Martial Sect. Without waiting for the people from the Divine Martial Sect to speak, he directly slashed down with his saber. The demonic chi of the Avicii Dao's 3 sabers contained the power of the blood-refined deity shield. When the 2 of them combined, the power was extremely evil, causing the old man from the Divine Martial Sect to be extremely shocked. He turned to the few Xiantian realm martial artists and shouted, "You guys protect the young Mississippi. The rest of you, follow me." Just now, Chu Xiu's strike had gained the upper hand by a show of strength, and it had already destroyed their courage. At this moment, they were not thinking about how to kill Chu Xiu, but how to survive under Chu Xiu's blade. The old man from the Divine Martial Sect held a long spear in his hand, and a violent burst of gang chi erupted. He smashed it down towards Chu Xiu. Although his momentum was surging, it was suppressed by Chu Xiu. Just now, Chu Xiu had unleashed his speed and strength, as well as his own essence, chi, and spirit to the extreme. He had gained the upper hand by making a show of strength, which was why he was able to instantly kill an unsuspecting 3-flower realm warrior. Now that they were in a real battle, Chu Xiu naturally couldn't slash the same way. However, with his current strength and foundation, it was enough to compete with ordinary 3-flower realm martial artists, especially since the old man from the Divine Martial Sect was not young anymore. He was no longer at his peak. Under this attack, the other party directly grunted and took a few steps back. At this time, several other inner and physical invulnerability realm martial artists of the Divine Martial Sect also rushed forward. Powerful gang chi suddenly erupted. Under the siege, there was a murderous intent coming from all directions. The demonic chi around Chu Xiu flourished. He could still continue to suppress the power of the 3 blades of Avicii. At that moment, his whole body was soaked in demonic chi. It was as if a demon king had descended. That pure and evil demonic chi with monstrous hatred was probably something that even a real demonic expert would be ashamed of. The long saber slashed down, and in an instant, with Chu Xiu as the center, a magnificent saber light spilled out. There was a bright crimson in the black demonic chi. Those Divine Martial Sect martial artists were shocked to find that their gang chi was easily torn apart like tofu in the evil and bright saber light. If Chu Xiu's red sleeve saber of the dusk drizzle was just a continuous drizzle, then now it was a torrential rainstorm. Under the siege, those inner invulnerability realm martial artists couldn't resist and were directly beheaded. As for the other physical invulnerability realm martial artists, they were not much better off. They were directly blasted away, and the weapons in their hands suddenly spat out blood. With one move, he directly broke through the siege of several people with brute force. The onlooking martial artists, especially those martial artists of the same realm as Chu Xiu, all had grave expressions. This level of gang chi was already beyond their imagination. It wasn't a matter of whether you wanted to block it or not, but whether you could block it or not. After one slash, Chu Xiu slightly frowned. The demonic chi attracted by the 3 blades of Avicii was really not that easy to subdue. Every time he used it, the demonic chi became more turbulent. In the end, the demonic chi was so strong that Chu Xiu had to use the 3 blades of Avicii. "Take the young lady and escape." The old man from the Divine Martial Sect with a spear rushed up again, But what greeted him was an overwhelming and powerful saber light. Those innate realm martial artists wanted to take Yan Tingting away, but at this time, Yan Tingting stared at Chu Xiao with bloodshot eyes. Her eyes were filled with a strong sense of unwillingness. Previously, she wanted to kill Chu Xiao, but her father didn't allow it and even grounded her. Now that she finally had a chance to take revenge, the strength that Chu Xiao displayed made her despair. Young lady, let's go. This Chu Xiao's strength is simply abnormal. Even if martial Uncle Qiu is in the three-flower realm, he won't be able to resist for long. The other disciples of the divine martial sect were still trying to persuade her. However, no matter what they said, Yan Tingting still didn't move. The hatred in her eyes grew stronger and stronger. Neither Chu Xiao nor Nie Donglu understood why Yan Tingting would like a good-for-nothing like Yu Luchuan. After all, in their opinion, there was nothing good about Yu Luchuan other than his good looks. Even if Nie Donglu claimed that he was good friends with Yu Luchuan, it was only because of his status. Otherwise, how could a good-for-nothing like him be worthy of calling him brother? There were many beautiful women in the world, and there were also many handsome men. With the power of the divine martial sect, Yan Tingting's future husband would definitely be the kind of person with good looks. Unfortunately, Yan Tingting only loved Yu Luchuan. It could only be said that there was no reason for love. Just like Yan Tingting now, killing Chu Xiao was not only to avenge Yu Luchuan, but also to become her obsession. Chapter 226. A warrior at the three-flower realm of converging one's essence, qi, and spirit were unified. Compared to those at the physical invulnerability realm, the most obvious difference was that their explosive power was more than a level higher. Unfortunately, even if Chu Xiao had not cultivated his essence, qi, and spirit to the level of unification, his explosive power was still astonishing. Back in the Guanzhong torture room, even Wei Hanshan, who was an inspector and was in his prime, was no match for Chu Xiao, let alone the old man from the Divine Force sect. His strength was even weaker than Wei Hanshan's. Therefore, the old man from the Divine Force sect already felt that he was no match for Chu Xiao's powerful Devil Qi blade aura. The old man from the Divine Force sect was fighting desperately to stop Chu Xiao so that Yan Tingting could escape. In fact, he was already prepared to die. This was Eastern Qi. Before this, they thought that no one would come to help Chu Xiao. Now that they were in a desperate situation, they realized that no one would come to help them either. Previously, when Chu Xiao killed another warrior at the three-flower realm of converging one's essence with his blade, he had completely destroyed their courage. Even if they all attacked together, they would still be no match for Chu Xiao. Reality had proven all of this. However, even though he knew that he was courting death, the old man from the Divine Force sect did not want to escape. It was not because he was so loyal to the Divine Force sect and Yan Huainan that he could sacrifice his life for Yan Tingting. It was because his children were also cultivating in the Divine Force sect. Yan Huainan had sent him to protect his daughter precisely because he was experienced in the martial world. In the end, Yan Tingting had met with a mishap because of him. Regardless of whether it was because of him or not, he would be severely punished, and it would even implicate his descendants in the sect. Therefore, it was better to fight to the death here and let Yan Tingting escape. That way, Yan Huainan would at least remember his contribution and treat his children well. With that thought in mind, the old man from the Divine Force sect did not care about anything else. He began to burn the little blood he had left and began to fight with Chu Xiao. However, right at this moment, Chu Xiao suddenly retreated. He formed a seal with one hand, and the surging devil qi was completely suppressed by him. This caused the eyes of the Divine Martial Sect's elder to brighten. He knew that it was impossible for the secret method to maintain such a powerful force all the time. Now it seemed that the secret method's time limit was up. If it continued to be used, it might even cause a certain backlash. At this time, it was the time when Chu Xiao was at his weakest. As expected, after Chu Xiao suppressed the power of the 3 cuts of Avicenaraka in his body, his face even turned a little pale. Previously, Chu Xiao had used the second cut of the 3 cuts of Avicenaraka many times. After using it, he would immediately suppress the devil qi. Therefore, apart from the first time, Chu Xiao had almost never suffered from a backlash. This time, however, Chu Xiao had endured for such a long time without suppressing the demonic aura. Instead, he had used the demonic aura to attack his enemies. Although it was very powerful, the consumption was also abnormally intense. To be precise, This was not a consumption of his true energy or inner force, but a consumption of his mind. However, in the eyes of the old man from the Divine Force sect, Chu Xiao had consumed too much energy. This was also his only chance. In an instant, a dazzling light erupted from the spear in the old man's hand. It was as scorching and resplendent as a blazing sun, but there was a trace of blood mixed within it. It was the power brought about by the burning of his vital energy. The spear was like a dragon, a rainbow piercing the sun. This spear thrust condensed the strongest power of the old man from the Divine Force sect. The burning power of vital qi even had a part of the effect of destroying the devil. Although it was not as good as a Buddhist cultivation method, it could still restrain a martial artist like Chu Xiao who had cultivated in devil arts. However, at this time, Chu Xiao, who bore the brunt of the attack, revealed a mocking smile. When the Divine Force sect's old man's spear fell, Chu Xiao's hand formed the great Vajra wheel seal. The Buddha's light that bloomed was even more dazzling than the old man's spear. Who said that he only knew devil arts? This old man from the Divine Force sect probably didn't even have basic information about him before coming to seek revenge. Wasn't he just courting death? Under the powerful great Vajra wheel seal, the sound of shattering astral energy rang out. The spear in the old man's hand was also a fourth revolution precious weapon. However, it was directly shattered by Chu Xiao's great Vajra wheel seal. The old man from the Divine Force sect was also sent flying more than 10 steps by Chu Xiao. In the end, he couldn't hold on any longer. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned deathly pale. Before, Chu Xiao's pale face was only because he had consumed too much of his vital qi. Now, the Divine Force sect's old man's face was pale because he was about to run out of energy. Miss, hurry up and leave. The old man from the Divine Force sect looked at Yan Tingting, who still hadn't left. His eyes were filled with despair, but he couldn't persuade Yan Tingting anymore. His desperate attack had been broken by Chu Xiao, and he was severely injured by the great Vajra wheel seal. At his age, he couldn't hold on any longer. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man from the Divine Force sect fell to the ground with a loud thud. The crowd immediately went into an uproar. 2-3 Flower Realm warriors, as well as several inner and outer invulnerability realm warriors, were killed and seriously injured by Chu Xiao in the blink of an eye. They couldn't even find a word to describe his strength other than terrifying. Meanwhile, in the field, after dealing with the 2-3 Flower Realm warriors, Chu Xiao narrowed his eyes and revealed a hint of murderous intent as he walked toward Yan Tingting. In fact, Chu Xiao didn't like to kill women. After all, he was a man, and it was somewhat degrading for him to always kill women. However, the premise was that the other party didn't provoke him and didn't affect his interests. Otherwise, if Chu Xiao wanted to kill them, he wouldn't care about men or women. He only cared about the living and the dead. He killed Yu Luchuan. It didn't matter if Yan Tingting hated him or resented him. However, she now hated Chu Xiao to the extreme. As long as there was a chance, Chu Xiao was sure that this woman would definitely kill him. Therefore, if he let her live, countless troubles would be waiting for Chu Xiao. It was better to kill her now and put an end to it. As for the Divine Force sect, Chu Xiao really didn't believe that Yan Huainan would dare to go to the Guanzhong torture room and ask for Guan Siyu. Whether it was in terms of status or strength, the Guanzhong torture room far surpassed the Divine Force sect. Most importantly, this was the style of the Guanzhong torture room. If you don't provoke me, I won't provoke you. The Guanzhong torture room never took the initiative to cause trouble, but they were never afraid of it. The few innate stage warriors guarding in front of Yan Tingting saw Chu Xiao walking over. They weren't as useless as running away in fear, but they still said in a slightly trembling voice, "Don't come over." Chu Xiao, are you crazy? Do you know that if you kill the young lady, you will never rest until the Divine Force sect is dead? Chu Xiao held his saber and said indifferently, "Not rest until the Divine Force sect is dead? If I don't kill her, she will definitely continue to create all kinds of trouble to deal with me. At that time, the Divine Force sect and I will also not rest until the Divine Force sect is dead. Therefore, why don't I finish her off earlier? So, please go to hell." However, at this moment, Yan Tingting suddenly raised her head and shouted to the surrounding warriors who were watching the show, "I will marry whoever kills him." As soon as she said this, everyone present was in an uproar. This young lady of the Divine Force sect was probably mad with anger. How could she say such words? However, Yan Tingting said with hatred in her hoarse voice, I swear by the divine force sect's fortune that if anyone can kill Chu Xiu, I will marry him today. Everyone here can be a witness. Hearing Yan Tingting use the divine force sect to swear, everyone present couldn't help but change their expressions. What Yan Tingting said should be true. Her reputation wasn't worth much, but the divine force sect was one of the 7 sects and 8 schools. As Yan Huainan's daughter, she used the divine force sect's fortune to swear. This couldn't be false. Hearing this, there were many people who were tempted. Although they knew that Yan Tingting was using her marriage as the price to kill Chu Xiu purely out of hatred, they didn't like Yan Tingting because of love or anything like that, but because of Yan Tingting's identity. She was the young lady of the divine force sect. Moreover, Yan Tingting's appearance wasn't bad. Those disciples of the big sects might not like her, but some rogue cultivators or warriors from small sects were tempted. However, although they were tempted, no one made a move. It wasn't that Yan Tingting wasn't attractive enough, but Chu Xiu's power just now was too shocking, and it scared them. He had killed 2 3-flower realm martial artists in a row. Even if they were old, they were still genuine 3-flower realm martial artists. Moreover, the other inner and physical invulnerability realm martial artists were no match for him. Becoming the son-in-law of the divine force sect was very attractive, but the premise was that one had to weigh one's capabilities. Seeing that everyone present was scared by Chu Xiu's power and didn't dare to make a move, Yan Tingting shouted at them, "What are you afraid of? No matter how strong Chu Xiu is, he is only in the physical invulnerability realm. Look at his face. Just now, the people of the divine force sect used up most of his inner force. There are so many of you, and you still don't dare to make a move?" Seeing that everyone was still hesitating, Yan Tingting gritted her teeth and said, "I'm my father's only daughter, and the divine force sect doesn't have any outstanding disciples in this generation. Whoever marries me will receive all the resources and support of the divine force sect, and he will be the next sect master of the divine force sect." As soon as these words came out, the innate realm warriors who were protecting Yan Tingting were shocked. The young lady had gone crazy. For the sake of revenge, she didn't care about anything else. How could she make such a promise? Although Yan Huainan's words carried weight in the divine force sect, the divine force sect was still a sect, not an aristocratic family. The next sect master looked at strength, not relationship with Yan Huainan. Now that Yan Tingting made such a promise here, if word got back to the divine force sect, most of the disciples in the divine force sect would be dissatisfied. It might even cause unrest in the sect. Chapter 227. The disciples of the divine force sect had guessed correctly. Yan Tingting was indeed a little crazy. For the sake of revenge, she did not care about anything else. In fact, before she met Chu Xiu, her emotions had almost stabilized. After all, Yu Luchuan had been dead for such a long time. When she found a new lover, she might forget about this matter. However, who would have thought that she would meet Chu Xiu here, causing her hatred to surge? She thought that she could kill Chu Xiu, but in the end, her subordinates were killed by Chu Xiu. In such a desperate situation, she, who was originally extreme, went completely crazy and did not care about anything else. Yan Tingting's crazy actions did attract the surrounding warriors, especially those who were itinerant cultivators and those from small sections. If they married Yan Tingting, they would be the successors of the divine force sect. That was the divine force sect, one of the 7 sects and 8 schools. Although some of the people present were not from the northern Yan kingdom, they had some understanding of the divine force sect and knew the situation of the divine force sect. In the entire divine force sect, Yan Huainan's words carried enormous weight. The divine force sect had risen because of Yan Huainan. The next generation did not have any outstanding figures. Even for this God Weapon Conference, except for Yan Tingting, who came to relax, the divine force sect did not send anyone else. Since this was the case, Yan Tingting's words were not deceiving them. It was really possible. The crowd looked at the slightly pale Chu Xiu and gradually gathered around him. Most of them were itinerant cultivators and warriors from small sections. Their eyes flashed with an inexplicable light. They had seen Chu Xiu's strength. It would be very terrifying to fight with such a terrifying person. Moreover, there was the Guanzhong torture room behind him. If they touched Chu Xiu, they would offend the Guanzhong torture room. These were all risks. However, the problem was that under the temptation of becoming Yan Huainan's son-in-law and the successor of the divine force sect, these risks could be offset. Previously, they did not make a move because the temptation was not enough. But now, the benefits were enough, to the point that they did not even dare to dream about it. In the face of such temptation, not to mention the risk, they were even willing to gamble with their lives. Moreover, there were people like Xie Lu who also saw through Chu Xiu's depth. The power that Chu Xiu displayed just now was indeed astonishing, but it was impossible for him to have the strength to kill a 3-flower realm cultivator as easily as killing a chicken. Even the little celestial master Zhang Qingzhen of Longhu Mountain was not as terrifying as Chu Xiu when he was in the physical invulnerability realm. He could easily kill a 3-flower realm martial artist with a single slash. That was why Chu Xiu's first slash was the ultimate attack with all his strength. Such an attack could not be used casually. Looking at the people present, Chu Xiu frowned slightly. It was indeed troublesome to offend a woman. There were 3 types of people in the martial world that should not be messed with: children, the elderly, and women. When a child walked the martial world, one would never know whether the other party was an old monster who had regained his youth after cultivating a secret technique, or if there was an old monster standing behind the child. As for the elderly, the young were afraid of the strong. Those old people in the martial world represented the decline of their qi and blood, which represented the decline of their combat power. Although they looked weak, in reality, such old people were the most terrifying. Because they were already at the end of their lifespan, they could fight to the death with no qualms. On the other hand, one still had a good time and a bright future. No matter how one looked at it, one would be at a disadvantage. As for women, there was no need to say much. As women, they were the best weapons and could bring you a lot of trouble. For example, Chu Xiu was now. After looking around, Chu Xiu's eyes revealed a hint of coldness. He said, "Blinded by greed, all of you want to be Yan Huainan's son-in-law? Let me give you a word of advice. In the end, if you can't be Yan Huainan's son-in-law, I'm afraid you will go to hell and become the son-in-law of the king of hell." With the temptation of benefits in front of them, Chu Xiu's words did not scare these people away. Among them, a handsome man in a blue shirt, holding a folding fan, and dressed like a young master of an aristocratic family stood out and sneered. "Blinded by greed? You actually wanted to kill a woman like Miss Yan. You're simply deranged. Moreover, the person I, Zhu Wuha, respect the sect master of Yan Huainan the most in my life. If you want to touch Miss Yan, you will have to go through me first." The man who spoke was Zhu Wuha, the eldest son of the Zhu family, a small family in eastern Qi. His strength was not bad, and he had reached the physical invulnerability realm at a young age. His father, the head of the Zhu family, was also in the physical invulnerability realm. It could be said that the small Zhu family could no longer accommodate him, and they could not provide him with enough cultivation resources. Zhu Wuha did not come to the God Weapon Conference to have any illusions about the God Weapon. He just wanted to make friends with some disciples of the big sections. He did not expect to encounter such a good thing. He thought highly of himself, and he even believed that if he had been born in one of the 9 big aristocratic families instead of a small family like the Zhu family, his current achievements would not be any worse than those elites on the Longhu list. If he could really kill Chu Xiu this time, marry Yan Tingting, become Yan Huainan's son-in-law, and obtain the support of the entire Divine Force sect, he would reach the peak of his life. The other warriors cast a disdainful glance at Zhu Wuha. If he wanted to fight, then fight. Why did he have to use such high-sounding reasons? He had never left Eastern Qi in his life, so why did he have to talk about admiring Yan Huainan? However, since Zhu Wuha was the first to stand out, there was a second one. An ugly brawny man in his 30s, holding a giant axe, also stood out and said with a laugh, "I have never liked a woman in my life. Now that I have the opportunity to become the son-in-law of the Divine Force sect master, I would like to give it a try." Seeing that this brawny man also wanted to join in the fun, the crowd instantly felt a chill run down their spines. This brawny man was Evil Tiger Peng Zue, a well-known rogue cultivator of this generation in Chonglin County. He used to be a bandit in his early years, and he even built a small mountain stronghold of his own, but it was annihilated by the soldiers. Later on, although he no longer made a living as a bandit, it was still not a good thing. He even worked as a hanger-on for others, and he ended up betraying his master. Moreover, this Peng Zue was nearly 3 meters tall, with dark skin and an ugly appearance. It was unbearable to look at him standing next to a petite woman like Yan Tingting. "Peng Zue, with your conduct, even if you really went to the Divine Force sect, I'm afraid you would be kicked out by Sect Master Yen. Why don't you take a good look at yourself in the mirror? Do you think you are worthy of marrying Miss Yen with that appearance of yours? A handsome and elegant man with 2 swords on his back, wearing a tight-fitting warrior suit, walked out from the crowd with a proud expression on his face. It's Gong Sun Lu, the twin scarlet swords. Ranked 32nd on the Dragon and Tiger list, Gong Sun Lu. The crowd immediately went into an uproar. This was the first time a warrior on the Dragon and Tiger list stood out to attack Chu Xiao. At the back of the crowd, Mo Tianlin frowned and said, "Why is this shit stirrer on the Dragon and Tiger list here?" Xie Xiao Lu curled his lips and said, "Watch your words. If he is a shit stirrer, then what are we?" Although this Gong Sun Lu was also a warrior on the Dragon and Tiger list, his conduct was somewhat despicable. The Dragon and Tiger list was ranked according to fame and strength. This Gong Sun Lu had some strength, but he was a rogue cultivator, and his fame was not outstanding. It would be very difficult for him to step into the top 50 of the Dragon and Tiger list with his meager strength. Therefore, this Gong Sun Lu came up with an idea, and that was to specifically challenge those who were not as strong as him, but were very famous and ranked ahead of him on the list. Furthermore, they were rogue cultivators. Before the battle, he would collect detailed information about them, and only when he was 99% sure of winning would he dare to make a move. In the martial world, the young heroes who could be ranked on the Dragon and Tiger list were all challenging warriors who were stronger than them. In the end, this Gong Sun Lu was just doing it for the sake of getting on the list. Sometimes, he would even pick on his opponents when they were weak, just to get on the Dragon and Tiger list. This was simply shameless, which was why he was called the shit stirrer of the Dragon and Tiger list. Normal warriors might respect him because of his ranking on the Dragon and Tiger list, but in the eyes of Mo Tianlin and the others, this guy was just a clown. Although this Gong Sun Lu looked young, he was actually more than 30 years old. In a few years, he would be completely kicked out of the Dragon and Tiger list by the wind-sweeping tower. Therefore, he came to the God Weapon Conference this time to gain a last bit of fame, but he did not expect to encounter such a good thing. If he could really kill Chu Xiao, with his appearance and ranking on the Dragon and Tiger list, Yan Huainan might even be eager to make him his son-in-law. Gong Sun Lu and the other 2 were considered to be somewhat famous warriors in Eastern Qi. Since they stood up and were ready to attack Chu Xiao, almost 100 warriors among the surrounding onlookers stood up and were eager to give it a try. Among these warriors, there were both inner and physical invulnerability warriors. As for warriors below the inner invulnerability realm, they did not dare to make a move. The warriors of the inner strong realm might still have the mentality of taking advantage of a situation, but the warriors of the innate realm did not even have the guts to do so. In a fight of this level, they could easily be killed if they were not careful. The aura of more than 100 people gathered together was extremely powerful. Even if Chu Xiao had gained the upper hand by showing off his strength, no matter how amazing the aura he created was, it would be useless in the face of more than 100 people. Sometimes people would follow blindly. If you were alone, you would be afraid, but if you had more than 100 companions around you, your fear would be distributed to these people, and you would become extremely brave. Standing at the back of the crowd, Mo Tianlin lowered his head and transmitted his voice to Xie Xiao Lu. "Do we need help? After all, he is a friend of your friend." Xie Xiao Lu said lightly, "A friend of a friend does not mean that he is a friend of mine. After all, we have only known each other for a few hours. I am not so righteous that I would risk my life for him. There are more than 100 people here, and it will be very tragic if I provoke them all. However, Brother Lu has mentioned him to me many times. With this important relationship, I will naturally not watch Chu Xiao be killed. There is no need to add flowers to brocade. If he really cannot hold on, I will lend a helping hand and save his life. What do you think?" Mo Tianlin also smiled and said, "Just like you." Chapter 228. There were many righteous people in Jianghu, and there were also many realistic people. Xie Xiao Lu and Mo Tianlin weren't righteous, but they weren't realistic people either. Xie Xiao Lu was willing to become friends with Chu Xiao because of Lu Fengxian, while Mo Tianlin became friends with Chu Xiao because he was curious. In addition, he was a very amiable person who liked to make friends with others. They had only known Chu Xiao for half a day. Asking them to fight to the death for Chu Xiao was something they couldn't do. Just like what Xie Xiao Lu said, the most they could do was to help Chu Xiao in his hour of need and save his life. That was already being extremely benevolent. This wasn't because they were indifferent, but because they lived in Jianghu. Most people could only do this. Just like Xie Xiaolu and Mo Tianlin, they had been good friends for many years. But even so, they had their own forces behind them, so they couldn't really fight to the death for each other. At most, they could only do their best. Moreover, the two of them wanted to see Chu Xiu's true strength. For martial artists like Xie Xiaolu and Mo Tianlin, those who could become friends with them were either people of similar status or stronger than them. Ordinary people didn't even have the qualifications to be friends with them. At this time, everyone was looking at Chu Xiu eagerly. The pressure even made Chu Xiu feel heavy. At the same time, he also felt that it was ridiculous. After stepping into Jianghu for so long, because he was familiar with the storyline, Chu Xiu was able to avoid many risks most of the time. Even when he faced the Heaven Sin branch leader last time, Chu Xiu used the storyline to lure the people of White Tiger Hall out of danger. But this time, it was purely an accident. He did not expect Yan Tingting to appear here, nor did he expect Yan Tingting's hatred for him to be so deep that she would not hesitate to pay the price of her own life to kill him. In the face of such a dangerous situation, Chu Xiu heaved a sigh of relief. The external pressure was heavy, but his heart was incomparably calm. It was a kind of calm that could be described as crazy. Chu Xiu from his previous life had always been the main character in the fusion of the memories of the two lives. However, in this life, Chu Xiu had been infected with a crazy and tyrannical personality in the Chu family's Nanshan mining area. It had been a long time since Chu Xiu had this kind of personality, but under this kind of external pressure, the tyrannical madness hidden in the deepest part of his soul was quietly released. Raising his head, Chu Xiu smiled at the people around him. "Do you all want to exchange my life for your future? Bring it on." Everyone present suddenly frowned. If an ordinary person was surrounded by hundreds of martial artists of the same level, the only thing they would think of was to kill their way out and escape. Not like Chu Xiu, who dared to take the initiative to provoke them. This was simply courting death. However, the aftermath of Chu Xiu killing a three-flower realm martial artist with a single slash still lingered in the air. Although everyone knew that it was only because of Chu Xiu's explosive power and not because of his true strength, who would dare to bet against him? The first person to attack could easily be used as cannon fodder to die, and then the people behind him could take advantage of it. Seeing that no one dared to move, the corner of Chu Xiu's mouth showed a crazy smile. "Since none of you are coming, well, I'll go first." As soon as his voice fell, Chu Xiu took a step forward and pinched the inner binding seal. In an instant, his speed exploded to the extreme. The red sleeve blade in his hand was as red as blood. It had already devoured countless lives, and it was mixed with a dense aura of death. Chu Xiu's blood-refining divine shield was unleashed to the extreme. In an instant, the sky was filled with blood-red blade shadows, and they directly rushed toward the evil tiger Peng Zue. Although the power of this blade was not as strong as the power of the Avici Dao's three blades that Chu Xiu had directly burst out, it was still shocking enough. At the very least, Peng Zue, who bore the brunt of the attack, even wanted to curse. There were hundreds of people present, surrounding Chu Xiu. There were people in all directions. Why did Chu Xiu have to target him? So many people thought that he was easy to bully? However, under Chu Xiu's terrifyingly powerful blade aura, Peng Zue didn't have the time to complain at all. He roared furiously, and a pitch-black aura burst out from the giant axe in his hand. As the axe chopped down, a violent sonic boom immediately erupted. The aura even faintly condensed into the shape of a black tiger, appearing abnormally ferocious. Peng Zue was able to make a name for himself in the land of Eastern Qi, and even survive the strangulation of the Eastern Qi Imperial Court, which was enough to prove his strength. He hadn't learned any particularly profound martial skills, but he was exceptionally talented. His own strength and stellar energy were shockingly strong, and there were very few people in the same cultivation level who could block three of his axes. But at this time, facing Chu Xiu, his powerful axe with the roar of a black tiger was shattered inch by the blood-refined divine gang. The slender red sleeve blade collided with the giant axe in his hand, which was half the height of a person, but it directly chopped Peng Zue's giant axe into pieces. With a loud bang of gang qi, Peng Zue's body flew out directly. He instantly spat out blood, and a look of horror appeared in his eyes. What he was most proficient in was power. In the end, his power couldn't even withstand a single blow from Chu Xiu. And it was not over yet. Chu Xiu's figure rushed towards him again. At this time, Peng Zue also hurriedly shouted, "Don't just watch. Attack together. If you continue to hesitate, not to mention 100 people, even 1,000 people will be defeated by Chu Xiu one by one." Peng Zue's words did awaken many people. In a one-on-one fight, even a warrior with a little fame like Peng Zue could not withstand a few moves from Chu Xiu. If they ignored Chu Xiu and watched him attack, then sooner or later they would be defeated by Chu Xiu one by one. Therefore, more than a dozen physical invulnerability realm warriors beside Peng Zue hurriedly took action and blocked in front of Chu Xiu. Countless sword qi and gang qi broke out, and finally blocked Chu Xiu's blade momentum. The power of the blood-refined divine gang was indeed strong, and Chu Xiu's blade momentum was indeed amazing. But now more than a dozen people attacked together, and the pressure was evenly distributed, so they successfully blocked Chu Xiu's attack. But at this moment, a golden Buddha's light suddenly burst out. Under the great Vajra wheel seal, the incomparably fierce power directly broke through all obstacles, and several people in front of him were directly blown away while vomiting blood. Then, it directly rushed towards Peng Zue. But just after Chu Xiu performed the great Vajra wheel seal, Zhu Wuhe appeared behind Chu Xiu unknowingly. On the folding fan in his hand, there were several bone-piercing nails with a trace of pitch-black gang qi attacking Chu Xiu's major acupoints. The pitch-black gang qi actually had the effect of corroding the opponent's gang qi. No matter how strong Chu Xiu's protective gang qi was, two bone-piercing nails directly hit two major acupoints on Chu Xiu's back. Seeing this, Zhu Wuhe's eyes showed a touch of joy. Similarly, he directly blasted a palm towards Chu Xiu's back. There was a trace of evil qi mixed in the palm force, which was obviously not a good method. On the other side, Peng Zue also breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this. Just now, he was still fantasizing about killing Chu Xiu and marrying Yan Tingting. Then he, a vulgar Jianghu person with a bandit background, could also become a disciple of a big sect. But Chu Xiu's saber made him recognize the cruel reality. If someone was killed by Zhu Wuhe, then so be it. At least, he could still keep his life, right? But just when everyone thought that Chu Xiu would definitely be killed by Zhu Wuhe's sneak attack, Chu Xiu directly turned around without warning. The bone-piercing nails that hit two major acupoints in his body were directly blasted away by the internal force, and did not have the slightest effect at all. Zhu Wuhe met Chu Xiu's gaze and saw the ruthless madness without the slightest emotion, which made Zhu Wuhe's heart suddenly skip a beat. But the next moment, Chu Xiu's gaze had changed. It should be said that his eyes were once again covered by devil qi. In just a few minutes, Chu Xiu had already triggered the power of the Avici Dao's three sabers twice. However, this time, Chu Xiu didn't use his saber. Instead, he welcomed Zhu Wuhe's palm strike with his great violet sun palm. This time, with Chu Xiu's devil qi as the catalyst, the violet sun devil flame seemed to have gained fuel as it burned intensely. When the palm strike landed, Zhu Wuhe immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire arm turned purple. The scorching violet sun devil flame burned within his body, causing him to almost scream out in pain. At this time, Chu Xiu's right hand was already holding the red sleeve saber, which made Zhu Wuhe retreat quickly. But unexpectedly, Chu Xiu did not attack Zhu Wuhe at all, but directly turned around and attacked Peng Zue again. No one could resist the three sabers of Avici Dao. When the red sleeve saber in Chu Xiu's hand, which was wrapped in devil qi, was lifted, the people in front of him either became corpses, or were directly beheaded, cut in half, and became incomplete corpses. Looking at the oncoming devil saber, Peng Zue's eyes showed endless horror. Even when his stronghold was annihilated by the military experts of Eastern Qi, he had not been so close to death. With a loud shout, gang qi burst out of Peng Zue's body, and a punch fell. The black tiger fist turned into a 1-meter-long gang qi phantom, trying to stop Chu Xiu, but the result was that under the terrible devil qi, it was shattered. When he came to his senses, he could not speak, because at this time, Peng Zue had already seen his headless corpse. Surrounded by the monstrous devil qi, Chu Xiu stood with the saber under the gaze of countless people, and at his feet was Peng Zue's headless corpse. Looking at Zhu Wuhe, Chu Xiu's eyes were wrapped in devil qi, and the people could not see his eyes, but could see a trace of a crazy smile at the corner of his mouth. Pointing to Zhu Wuhe, Chu Xiu said in a voice without the slightest emotion, "This is the first, and you are the second." Hearing this, Zhu Wuhe, who was expelling the purple sun devil flame, suddenly shivered and shouted in his heart, "Madman! Chapter 229. From Zhu Wuha's point of view, Chu Xiu was a madman. Chu Xiu's palm just now had already seriously injured him. Normally speaking, Chu Xiu should have killed him first, and then Peng Zue. However, Chu Xiu gave up on what was close at hand and sought what was far away, insisting on killing Peng Zue first, and now pointing at him to be the second. Chu Xiu's intentions were very clear. No matter how many people there were here, as long as they were targeted by him, no one would be able to leave alive. This was a kind of crazy attitude, not caring about gains and losses, only wanting to kill. At this time, Zhu Wuha, who was listed as the second target by Chu Xiu, looked at Chu Xiu's eyes that were covered by demonic energy, and suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. The martial artists who did not participate in this matter, and the spectators all revealed a look of surprise. Whether it was Chu Xiu's crazy attitude or his ability to recklessly kill his opponents in the midst of 100 people, they all left a very deep impression on them. Mo Tianlin's complexion was dignified as he looked at Xie Xiaolu and said, "If you were Chu Xiu, would you be able to do this?" After being silent for a long time, Xie Xiaolu's eyes revealed a touch of complexity, and he said, "Do fart." At this time, shouldn't a normal person choose to kill his way out? This guy actually took the initiative to fight those people. He's simply a madman. Mo Tianlin's eyes revealed a touch of surprise, and he said, "What's wrong with being a madman?" A senior of my Mo family once said, "There are no madmen in this world, only the strong and the weak. If you don't go crazy, you won't survive." When a madman stands at the peak, he is no longer a madman, but a strong person that everyone worships. Now I am more and more interested in this Chu Xiu. 1 against 100 if he doesn't die. This God weapon convention will be the place where he will make a name for himself. As a disciple of an aristocratic family, it was inevitable that there would be some utilitarianism in making friends. Mo Tianlin knew this, but he did not reject it. Based on the strength that Chu Xiu had displayed, he was ready to lend a helping hand. When Daoist Xian Cheng saw Chu Xiu's reaction, he suddenly frowned and mumbled, taking the initiative to draw the inner demon into his body. Was he crazy? No, this inner demon has always existed in his body. He is just releasing it naturally. This person was born with a demonic nature in his body. The sequelae of transmigration caused Chu Xiu to hide 2 personalities in his body. Simply put, his condition was the legendary schizophrenia. From Daoist Xian Cheng's point of view, Chu Xiu was a person with a hidden demonic nature. If he were to enter the demonic path, he would not be an elite on the Longhu list, but a ferocious new talent in the demonic path. The demonic path was not scary. What was scary was that some people in the demonic path did not even think of themselves as such. From Daoist Xian Cheng's point of view, Chu Xiu was such a person. The demonic nature in his body did not reject him at all. That was why he could use the secret technique to enter the demonic path twice in a row and still control the power in his body, preventing it from backfiring. Daoist Xian Cheng shook his head. If this person did not die, he might become a great demon who would bring disaster to the world in the future. However, he could not stop him. Daoist Xian Cheng had already sworn that he would never fight again in this life, so this matter was not something he could interfere with. With a sigh, Daoist Xian Cheng turned around and said to the few little Taoist children beside him, "Let's go. It's time for us to move." As he spoke, he waved his hand and led the few little Taoist children into the Taoist temple. However, the strange thing was that some of the warriors who were very close to Daoist Xian Cheng did not notice his actions at all. They did not even notice that Daoist Xian Cheng had disappeared. At this moment, Chu Xiu flashed a sinister smile at Zhu Wuha before charging straight at him. Seeing this, Zhu Wuha's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly retreated and shouted, "Guards! Everyone attack together. Don't let Chu Xiu defeat us one by one." When the warriors around heard Zhu Wuha's shout, not only did they not attack, but they also avoided Chu Xiu. No one dared to stop him. It was not that they were idiots who did not know the principle of defeating them one by one, but they did not want to die. Everyone could see that Chu Xiu was obviously not in the right state of mind. He would kill anyone he targeted and kill anyone who stood in his way, just like how he killed Peng Zue just now. Now that he had targeted Zhu Wuha, it proved that they were safe for the time being. As for how long Zhu Wuha could last, it was none of their business. People always wanted to get lucky. Now that Chu Xiu was in the limelight, no one wanted to be the first to rush to their deaths. Anyway, as long as Chu Xiu did not target them, they would not make the first move. Under Chu Xiu's extremely violent saber momentum, Zhu Wuhe was seriously injured by the saber aura after a few moves. He suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. This kind of gap in strength could not be made up for by any martial arts skill. At this time, Gong Sun Lu, who was watching the battle from the side, frowned. He was insidious and cunning, and was best at currying favor. Otherwise, he would not have a place on the Longhu list. Originally, with Gong Sun Lu's character, he was ready to take advantage of the situation at the last moment. However, it was obvious that he was not the only one who thought so. 1 against 100. This was simply a fantasy. The opponent would almost certainly die. But now, although Chu Xiu was fighting 1 against 100, the 100 people he was fighting had their own thoughts. 100 people had 100 thoughts. If this continued, no one would be able to kill Chu Xiu. Therefore, Gong Sun Lu could not calm down at this time. He directly stood up and shouted, "Everyone, if you continue to hold back, I am afraid that you will be defeated by Chu Xiu one by one. At that time, no one will be able to kill Chu Xiu. If you trust me, then listen to my command." More than 10 warriors who have practiced horizontal martial arts will stand up to block Chu Xiu. Warriors who are good at using hidden weapons, long arrows, and other weapons will attack from a distance. The rest of the warriors will coordinate with each other. Only then will we be able to kill this Chu Xiu. With that, Gong Sun Lu pulled out the 2 precious weapons on his back, one red and one black, and rushed towards Chu Xiu. People tend to follow blindly. If there was no one to go first, then no one else would. Although Gong Sun Lu's character was not very good, he was still famous and strong. Therefore, as soon as he spoke, many warriors were willing to listen to his command. They formed a formation and attacked Chu Xiu together. Under Gong Sun Lu's lead, more than 10 cultivators who cultivated in body-tempering cultivation techniques rushed forward. They burst forth with astral energy to block Chu Xiu's attack. With a series of explosions of astral energy, more than 10 people attacked together. Only then did they barely manage to block Chu Xiu's powerful saber attack. At the same time, there was a sound of air breaking. In the distance, some hidden weapons attacked Chu Xiu. Among them were several arrows with sharp gang qi. There were many warriors who used hidden weapons in the Jianghu, but there were only a few who used bows and arrows. Most of them were warriors who came from the imperial court and were used to using bows and arrows as weapons. The powerful bows and arrows and the sinister hidden weapons attacked together. Chu Xiu frowned. His blood-refined divine power burst out, cutting down the arrows one by one. As for the remaining hidden weapons, he also burst out his gang qi to block them. In any case, with a great acupoint shifting technique, even if Chu Xiu was hit by the hidden weapons, as long as there was no poison on them, Chu Xiu was not afraid at all. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Gong Sun Lu also led his men to attack. The 2 swords in Gong Sun Lu's hands were both precious weapons. One carried a scorching hot gang qi, while the other carried a sinister qi. However, Gong Sun Lu was able to use 2 different types of stellar energy and 2 different types of sword techniques very naturally. One yin and one yang, bringing with them 2 auras, slashed towards Chu Xiu. The other warriors also surged their gang qi and attacked Chu Xiu. The combined attack of more than a dozen people was very powerful. If it was anyone else, they would have been torn to pieces by this powerful gang qi. But at this moment, Chu Xiu formed a seal with both hands. He mobilized all the gang qi around him, and the aura around him suddenly became very stable, unmoving like a mountain. Formula of Lin. Dugu Yin. With a loud bang, endless gang qi exploded. Chu Xiu's figure quickly retreated, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Although Chu Xiu had once used Dugu Yin to block the divine black spatial claw from the heavenly Sin branch leader, now that there were more than a dozen people attacking together, Dugu Yin's defensive gang qi attack was more prominent. The recoil of his own power was still borne by Chu Xiu. So after using Dugu Yin to block the attack, Chu Xiu's internal organs were shaken and he suffered minor injuries. He formed the inner lion seal. While suppressing his internal injuries, Chu Xiu also suppressed the devil qi drawn by the 3 blades of Avici. He had drawn the devil qi into his body twice in a row without directly suppressing the recoil. His body was starting to feel a little overwhelmed. At this time, when Gong Sun Lu and the others saw that Chu Xiu had been beaten back by them, they couldn't help but show excitement in their eyes. Previously, Chu Xiu was so strong that he could kill anyone who stood in his way. If Buddha stood in his way, he would kill Buddha. Everyone was terrified. But now, Chu Xiu was seriously injured under their siege. This proved that Chu Xiu was not unbeatable. They still had a chance. So this time, they didn't need Gong Sun Lu's command. They directly swarmed forward and attacked Chu Xiu. Gong Sun Lu sneered when he saw this. He was not in a hurry. When these people had almost exhausted Chu Xiu's strength, it would be the best time for him to make his move. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Chu Xiu looked at the people rushing towards him and smiled. You can't wait to die? Well, I'll fulfill your wish. Before his voice died away, Chu Xiu's hand had already formed a fist seal. When this seal fell, the people around him felt that their bodies were sealed in the surrounding space. The Gang Qi imprisoned their bodies, like a big net, making it impossible for them to break free. Formation word formula. Wisdom fist seal. Main space. Sealed. Nets in all directions. Heaven and earth are useless. Chu Xiu's figure moved and appeared in front of a martial artist. At the moment when the martial artist was imprisoned by the Gang Qi, he gently twisted his hand and the martial artist's head was abruptly removed. Blood gushed out like a fountain. He turned around and unsheathed the red sleeve blade. The blood god gang erupted. The two martial artists in front of Chu Xiu were directly cut in half at the waist, letting out miserable screams. Within the range of the wisdom fist seal, Chu Xiu was like a poisonous spider that had laid an inescapable net, cold-blooded harvesting everyone's lives. Chapter 230. Chu Xiu was already very familiar with the first 6 seals of the fast and slow 9 words formula, but Chu Xiu had never used the last 3 seals. It was not that Chu Xiu did not want to use them, but the fast and slow 9 words formula itself was a kind of martial arts technique that consumed a lot of internal energy. The last few seals consumed too much internal energy, and they were all instantaneous bursts. If they were used rashly, it would cause great pressure on Chu Xiu's meridians, and if he was not careful, it would cause a backlash. At this moment, Chu Xiu could not care less about the backlash. He had mobilized all the Gang Qi in his body to the maximum. In his body, the glazed golden silk goo was attached to his heart, beating with the rhythm of Chu Xiu's heartbeat. Traces of golden power seeped into Chu Xiu's meridians. This was the power that belonged to the glazed golden silk goo. There was a reason why the glazed golden silk goo could be called a treasure in the past. Ordinary goo worms were evil and ruthless, belonging to the insidious category. However, the glazed golden silk goo was not that kind of insidious goo worm. Although it relied on the power of Chu Xiu's blood to grow and survive, at this critical moment, the glazed golden silk goo could also release its own power to complement Chu Xiu. The goo worm was attached to Chu Xiu's heart. This way, the two of them were symbiotic, and it was not a one-sided demand. At this time, under the powerful power of Chu Xiu's wisdom fist seal that sealed the void, the first dozen warriors who attacked were all slaughtered by Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu's figure was also quickly charging towards Zhu Wuha. Wherever he passed, no one dared to stop him. Previously, when they saw Chu Xiu vomiting blood from his injuries, they all thought that Chu Xiu was already in a desperate situation and had exhausted his limited abilities. Who would have thought that his sudden burst of power would take away more than a dozen lives? At this moment, everyone's heart was a little uncertain. Where exactly was Chu Xiu's limit? Although he seemed to have consumed a lot of energy, who dared to say that Chu Xiu did not have the strength to do it again? Gong Sun Lu was still shouting at the side. He wanted to gather people to stop Chu Xiu again, but this time, there was no one to deal with him. Looking at Chu Xiu's approaching figure, Zhu Wuha covered his wound and shouted in horror, "Don't kill me! I quit!" He was the only hope of the Zhu family, the only person qualified to step into the upper class of Jianghu. Even if he couldn't marry Yan Tingting, he had other ways to make a name for himself in the land of Eastern Qi. Why should he get involved in this mess? At this time, Zhu Wuha already regretted, but unfortunately, Chu Xiu would not give him the chance to regret. The crimson shadow of the knife shone in front of him. Even though the red sleeve knife had taken the lives of more than 10 people, there was still not a trace of blood on it. However, there was a strong smell of blood on the knife, which made people pale. Zhu Wuha roared. Ignoring his own injury, he wanted to burst out all the Gang Qi in his body to resist. But before he could do anything, Chu Xiu's figure had already swept past him. The crimson knife flashed, and Chu Xiu had already taken Zhu Wuha's head. Panting, Chu Xiu pointed at Gong Sun Lu and said in an extremely calm tone, "You are the third." When Chu Xiu looked at him with a calm but extremely crazy look, Gong Sun Lu suddenly shivered, and a chill rushed from the bottom of his heart to the top of his head. He looked around subconsciously. The other warriors were no longer as excited as before, nor were they still fantasizing about killing Chu Xiu, marrying Yan Tingting, becoming the heir of the Divine Force sect, and reaching the peak of their lives. Gong Sun Lu could only see fear in their eyes, endless fear. They had seen people who had killed more people than Chu Xiu, but Chu Xiu's method of killing people one by one, coupled with his terrifying strength that seemed to be able to destroy everything, was so strong that it made them despair. As long as it was the person Chu Xiu wanted to kill, he could not escape, and they could not stop him. Otherwise, whoever stood in his way would die. It could be said that God would kill God, Buddha would kill Buddha. Under such terrifying strength, their counterattack seemed so powerless. Even now, no one dared to take the initiative to step forward. If this went on, after Chu Xiu killed Gong Sun Lu, who would be next? Themselves or others? Although the probability was only a few out of 10, as long as they were targeted by Chu Xiu, the death rate was 100%. Thinking of this, some people even retreated from the crowd in a panic and fled. Marrying a beauty like Yan Tingting was indeed very tempting, and becoming the heir of the Divine Force sect was even more tempting. Everyone understood the principle of seeking wealth amidst danger. But the problem was that facing Chu Xiu, it was no longer seeking wealth amidst danger, it was simply seeking wealth amidst death. Therefore, some of the timid people were scared by Chu Xiu and immediately fled the place after losing their greed. People tended to follow blindly, just like how they had participated in the siege against Chu Xiu. Clearly, when one person escaped, the others also wanted to escape. From one person it became a few, and finally, it became a few dozens. Seeing Chu Xiu's figure approaching, Gong Sun Lu felt a little guilty. He knew his own strength. The other idiots were scared by Chu Xiu and did not even dare to fight. How could he fight when he was the only one left? Without saying a word, Gong Sun Lu directly turned around and fled, and his speed was even faster than the others. Looking at Gong Sun Lu's fleeing figure, Chu Xiu's eyes revealed a hint of coldness. In fact, his current state was not too bad. Although Chu Xiu was still killing, whether it was drawing demonic energy into his body twice or using the wisdom fist seal that he had not fully grasped, Chu Xiu's backlash was very large. If not for the glass golden thread's goose power to feed back to Chu Xiu probably would not have lasted until now. But now, Chu Xiu's will was still in an extreme state of madness. Since he said he would kill Gong Sun Lu, then he must die. So at this moment, Chu Xiu directly formed the internal binding seal, and his figure broke through the wind. Between heaven and earth, he could move unhindered. The speed that the internal binding seal could unleash could be said to be the limit for short distances. Gong Sun Lu did not run far before he felt a whistling gust of wind behind him. At the same time, he also felt the powerful aura qi that was stained with endless demonic energy descending on him. Gong Sun Lu roared angrily, and the two swords in his hands danced. In an instant, the crimson longsword danced with flames, and the long sword with the evil aura burst out a aura qi that was not demonic energy, but a decaying aura. It fused with the flames. In an instant, the fierce and explosive sword aura seemed to be ignited with ghost fire, and a strange and scorching aura burst out, enveloping Chu Xiu. This underworld flaming sword of his was something he had figured out himself, and he had condensed two different sword moves together, causing its might to explode out several times. A rogue cultivator like him did not have a powerful inheritance, so he could only rely on this alternative method to improve the power of his martial arts. The strength of the underworld fire sword's aura could only be said to be ordinary, but it contained an extremely strong corrosive power. It actually corroded Chu Xiu's blood-refined divine aura completely. However, before he could catch his breath, he saw a golden Buddha's light burst out in front of him. The Vajra glared, suppressing the world and subduing the demon. The great Vajra wheel seal. With a loud bang, the long sword in Gong Sun Lu's hand was directly knocked away. Even the web between his thumb and index finger was cracked by Chu Xiu's great Vajra wheel seal, and blood flowed out. Seeing Chu Xiu appear in front of him, Gong Sun Lu no longer had time to feel fear. He directly reached into his arms, wanting to take something. However, before he could do anything, Chu Xiu quickly formed a seal with his hand. As he tapped the seal with his fingers, There was a thunderous explosion. Fighting formula. Outer Lion Seal. The Outer Lion Seal, which was comparable to the Great Light Temple's 9 transformation lion roar, was displayed. The thunderous explosion seemed to ring in Gong Sun Lu's ears, and it immediately stunned him. He even started bleeding from his orifices. When Gong Sun Lu regained consciousness again, a dazzling golden fist seal appeared in front of him. It was another great Vajra wheel seal. Bang! There was a crisp explosion, and the blood mist in front of Chu Xiao dissipated. As Gong Sun Lu's headless body fell to the ground, there was suddenly a dead silence. Only Chu Xiao's deep breathing could be heard. Those who didn't participate in this battle all stared at Chu Xiao with their mouths agape. 1 against 100? This was an almost impossible task, but Chu Xiao had actually done it. The God Weapon Convention had yet to begin, but they were almost certain that after this matter, Chu Xiao's ranking on the Longhu leaderboard would definitely rise by a few more places. Not to mention the top 15, it was even possible for him to enter the top 10. Mo Tianlin looked at Chu Xiao, and after a long while, he let out an unclear sigh. He secretly transmitted his voice to Xiao Lu, who was beside him. What did I say? Only experts and madmen can do something like this. Just now you said that Chu Xiao is a madman, but now in the eyes of others he is an expert. Xiao Lu nodded with a complicated look in his eyes. He was also a proud person, and it was very difficult for ordinary martial artists of the same generation to convince him. In recent years, the only person who could convince him was Marquis Wen Lu Fengxian. But now, seeing Chu Xiao, he believed in Lu Fengxian's judgment of people. For Lu Fengxian to praise him so much, he was indeed not an ordinary person. If it were them in that situation just now, the only way out would be to fight a bloody path. Being able to escape in such a sorry state would already be considered lucky. Chu Xiao, on the other hand, did the exact opposite. He went on a killing spree as if he had gone mad, causing everyone to tremble in fear. He killed until no one dared to come and kill him. Don't look at how Chu Xiao looked like he was about to run out of strength. But based on Chu Xiao's performance just now, who could be sure that he did not have the strength to fight anymore? The terrifying thing about Chu Xiao was that others could not see through him at all. If anyone wanted to take advantage of him, they could only test him with their life. Chapter 231. In this battle, Chu Xiao had completely stabilized the situation by himself. However, at this moment Bai Wuji, who was in the rear, had a strange look in his eyes. The others had been scared stiff by Chu Xiao. Even if they knew that they could marry Yan Tingting and become Yan Huainan's son-in-law by killing Chu Xiao, they still didn't dare to make a move. However, when Bai Wuji saw that Chu Xiao's aura had become sluggish and was no longer as powerful as before, he felt a little restless. In fact, Bai Wuji didn't have any interest in Yan Tingting. He was also a warrior from the northern Yan clan, so he naturally knew what kind of person she was. A strong man like him naturally didn't like a crafty and unruly woman like Yan Tingting. Moreover, in his opinion, this woman was completely crazy. She actually used herself and the divine martial sect as a reward to hire someone to kill Chu Xiao. If Yan Huainan knew about this, he would be furious. Moreover, as the most outstanding disciple of this generation in the northern floating snow city, he didn't care about the position of the successor of the divine martial sect. The northern floating snow city was much stronger than the divine martial sect. Frankly speaking, the grudge between Bai Wuji and Chu Xiao was just a fight for fame and fortune. Some people didn't care about fame and fortune, but some people couldn't let it go, and Bai Wuji was one of them. When he first met Chu Xiao was just a penniless rogue cultivator. Bai Wuji didn't care even if he took away the treasure in Liuyang Mountain in front of him. However, in less than 2 years, Chu Xiao had completely surpassed him. Sooner or later, these things would be dug out by others. At that time, Bai Wuji would easily become a stepping stone for Chu Xiao's achievements on the Longhu list. However, Bai Wuji had no choice but to admit that just based on the might Chu Xiao displayed now, if they were to fight one-on-one, he wouldn't be a match for him. Even if he used the secret arts of the Drift Snow City, he didn't have much confidence in defeating Chu Xiao. However, Bai Wuji had never been a pedantic person. He had to be fair when fighting. It wasn't like he hadn't hit someone when they were down before. Therefore, after seeing Chu Xiao's attitude, Bai Wuji's eyes suddenly revealed a trace of killing intent. Finally, he made up his mind and said to Feng Huai and the other northern Yan warriors, "Later, all of you, attack Chu Xiu with me." Hearing Bai Wuji's words, Feng Huai was startled and quickly said, "Brother Bai, the God Weapon Conference is coming. And you will have plenty of time. Why are you in such a hurry?" If Bai Wuji wanted to attack Chu Xiu, that was Bai Wuji's business. They didn't want to get involved. If Chu Xiu was just an ordinary rogue cultivator, it would have been fine. After all, when they attacked him, they could at least curry favor with Bai Wuji, the young lord of the floating snow city. But the problem was that Chu Xiu was not an ordinary cultivator. He was the patrol of the Guanzhong torture room, representing the Guanzhong torture room to participate in the God Weapon Conference. Moreover, the patrol was the backbone of the Guanzhong torture room. They couldn't afford to lose him. If they hit Chu Xiu while he was down and made a move against him, the Guanzhong Disciplinary Hall would definitely demand an explanation from them if they were not cowards. Although the Guanzhong Torture Hall was located in the center of the three countries, so they had always been very low-key and cautious, in reality, with the power of the Guanzhong Torture Hall, it was still very easy for them to deal with forces of their level. They did not want to be involved in this mess. Bai Wuji said coldly, "I know what you are afraid of. You are afraid of the Guanzhong torture room. Don't worry, I will take responsibility for this. If the Guanzhong torture room wants to cause trouble, they can come to the northern floating snow city." Seeing that everyone was still hesitating, Bai Wuji said coldly, "What? My words don't work, or have you been frightened by Chu Xiu and don't dare to attack?" Feng Huai and the others glanced at each other and revealed helpless expressions. Bai Wuji had already started to threaten them. How could they not attack? If they attacked, they might offend the Guanzhong torture room, but if they didn't, they would definitely offend the northern floating snow city. Unless they didn't want to live in the northern Yan anymore, the northern floating snow city was something they couldn't afford to offend. Just as they were about to attack, Mo Tianlin and Xie Xiaolu noticed the commotion and looked at each other. They directly stood in front of Bai Wuji and the others. Chu Xiu's strength had proven that he could be their friend, so Mo Tianlin and Xie Xiaolu naturally had to show their sincerity. Looking at the two people in front of him, Bai Wuji said coldly, "Mo Tianlin, Xie Xiaolu, you two don't know Chu Xiu, do you? You've only known him for a day, and you want to stop me for him?" Mo Tianlin said indifferently, "We hit it off with Brother Chu the moment we met. Can't we?" Bai Wuji, you're too materialistic. Is the ranking on the Longhu leaderboard really that important? If you want to make a move, wait until the God Weapon Conference. But now that Brother Chu has exhausted himself, you'll have to go through us first if you want to add insult to injury. You! Bai Wuji's eyes showed a hint of coldness. Just as he clenched the spear in his hand, he saw Xie Xiaolu silently take off the floating feather saber on his back. The top 20 on the Longhu leaderboard was a threshold, and the top 10 was another. Xie Xiaolu was now ranked 12th on the Longhu leaderboard. He was the most capable of making it to the top 10. When he stepped into the three-flower realm, he would most likely have the strength to make it to the top 10. Bai Wuji knew about Xie Xiaolu's reputation in the land of West Chu. He didn't even have the confidence to face Xie Xiaolu alone, let alone Mo Tianlin. Looking at the two of them, Bai Wuji said coldly, "Very well. I'll remember this. We'll see the results during the God Weapon Conference." With that, Bai Wuji reluctantly put away his spear and retreated. Meanwhile in the field, Chu Xiu, who had just recovered some of his inner force, walked toward Yan Tingting with murderous intent in his eyes. Seeing Chu Xiu's actions, everyone's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Was Chu Xiu really going to kill Yan Tingting? Even Mo Tianlin was a little uncertain. He murmured, "Does Chu Xiu really dare to make a move? Isn't he afraid that Yan Huainan will go crazy if he kills Yan Tingting?" Most warriors who came from big families like Mo Tianlin would follow the principle of leaving a way out for others in case they met again in the future. Usually, they wouldn't go to such extremes. But now, Chu Xiu's behavior was basically going to go to such extremes. Even if Yan Tingting was Yan Huainan's daughter, he would still kill her. Xie Xiaolu said matter-of-factly, "This woman is so good at causing trouble. If we don't kill her now, are we going to keep her alive for the new year? If I were Chu Xiu, I would also kill her." Mo Tianlin looked at Xie Xiaolu speechlessly. Xie Xiaolu's master was Chen Qingdi, who was famous for being domineering. Of course, Xiao Lu would dare to say such words with him backing him up. However, Chu Xiu didn't have such a master, and Guan Xiu was only his superior. If he really angered Yan Huainan, it was unknown whether Guan Xiu would be able to help Chu Xiu deal with all of this. Actually, Chu Xiu wasn't thinking so much. He wasn't an indecisive person to begin with. In addition, the crazy and tyrannical side of his mind had the upper hand. So, Chu Xiu's thinking was very simple. If you want to kill me, I'll kill you. I don't care who you are or what the consequences are. The divine martial sect Xiantian realm warriors revealed endless fear in their eyes. At this moment, they couldn't care less about their superiors. They immediately grabbed Yan Tingting and fled. At this moment, Yan Tingting's eyes were no longer filled with hatred. There was only fear. Previously, she only had hatred for Chu Xiu because she thought she could kill Chu Xiu. But in the end, she realized that even though she had used all her methods, she was still extremely weak in front of Chu Xiu. When Chu Xiu had destroyed all her methods, and she had even started to face the threat of death, Yan Tingting finally knew what fear was. She knew what the fear of death was. As Yan Huainan's daughter and the young mistress of the divine martial sect, who in the entire northern Yan land didn't know about her, Yan Huainan didn't expect his daughter to become stronger, so he had no intention of training her. Every time he went out, he would bring a group of divine martial sect's disciples with him as guards. She had never encountered any danger since she was young. It was only now that Yan Tingting knew what the fear of death was. In the face of death, her love for Yu Luchuan was nothing. Her hatred for Chu Xiu had already vanished and turned into fear. So when the divine martial sect's disciples pulled her away, Yan Tingting didn't refuse. Instead, she took the initiative to escape with them. But it was already too late. Although there was some distance between them, their speed was too slow. Moreover, they were carrying Yan Tingting, who was a burden. Even if Chu Xiu didn't use the internal binding seal, they wouldn't be able to escape with a few Xiantian realm warriors. Yan Tingting took a step forward, and the sound of Gang Qi gradually came. Seeing that Chu Xiu was getting closer and closer to them, she couldn't help but shout in fear, "Don't kill me! I won't come back for revenge." Yan Tingting's shout was absolutely sincere. Today, Chu Xiu had left a deep fear in her heart. At least, before she could overcome this fear, she really didn't dare to come back for revenge against Chu Xiu. However, at this time, Chu Xiu acted as if he didn't hear her words. The red sleeve blade in his hand was already unsheathed, and a crimson Gang Qi slashed across the sky. The blood-refined god Gang slashed down with a loud bang without any mercy. The divine martial sect's warriors and Yan Tingting's eyes were filled with despair. But at this time, the sound of angry waves suddenly came. A waterspout suddenly rose from the mirror lake and blocked in front of Yan Tingting like an arrow. The waterspout exploded with a loud bang, shattering Chu Xiu's blood-refined god Gang. Everyone looked at Mirror Lake and saw a small boat speeding towards them. There was no one rowing the boat. It was driven by stellar energy, but it was as fast as an arrow leaving the bow. Chapter 232. On the Mirror Lake, the small boat was riding the wind and breaking through the waves. The Gang Qi swept out, and the small boat moved faster than an arrow leaving the bow. At this moment, there were two people standing on the small boat. One of them was a middle-aged man dressed in white with a refined appearance. He had a faint smile on his face. The other person was dressed in a white brocade robe. He was tall and slender, and his long hair was tied into a crown. There was a crimson long spear by his side, and he looked very valiant. In fact, if one were to take a closer look, they would find that this person was handsome, but he had the soft lines of a woman. His lips were red, and the bridge of his nose was high. Only his eyebrows were raised, and he looked very valiant. His chest was bulging without any disguise. It was obvious that he was a woman. At this moment, the woman looked at the movements on the shore and could not help but sigh. This little girl is taking things too hard. Is it worth it for her to risk her life for a man? Also, Sect Master Yan Huainan is too much. He doesn't have a son, and his disciple is not good enough. So, he decided to train his daughter. In the end, he spoiled his daughter to this extent. By the way, Uncle Xiao, you don't like to meddle in other people's business. Why did you help Yan Huainan's daughter this time? The middle-aged man shook his head and said, The hardest thing to repay in this world is a debt of gratitude. When I was traveling in northern Yan Huainan helped me, and I owe him a favor. Yan Huainan sent someone to inform me that his daughter was coming to Eastern Qi and asked me to take care of her. I can't just sit back and watch Yan Huainan's daughter get into trouble in Eastern Qi, can I? But this girl has been spoiled too much by Yan Huainan. She can't stay in Eastern Qi anymore. I'll send her back to northern Yan later. The woman nodded. As she spoke, the small boat had already reached the shore, but it did not stop at all. It flew directly to Chu Xiao on the shore as if it was in the lake. Seeing the two people coming down from the small boat, Chu Xiao's eyes immediately showed a serious expression. The middle-aged man's aura could not be seen at all, but he seemed to faintly merge with heaven and earth. Every move he made was like the spring breeze and rain, instantly clearing away the powerful murderous aura in the surroundings. Looking at Chu Xiao, the middle-aged man frowned and suddenly waved his hand. Suddenly, Chu Xiao felt a cool breeze coming at him. He subconsciously wanted to block it, but this cool breeze did not contain any offensive power. Instead, it dispersed the demonic qi backlash from Chu Xiao's repeated use of the 3 blades of Avici. It also completely suppressed the madness and violence in Chu Xiao's heart. Little friend, there are both righteous and demonic cultivation techniques in your body. I won't talk about righteous cultivation techniques, but some demonic cultivation techniques can be said to be extreme. For you, it's best not to cultivate them if you don't have to. Otherwise, you will be plagued by inner demons and it's hard to guarantee that you won't fall into the demonic path. The middle-aged man spoke sincerely to Chu Xiao. There was no disdain or disgust for the demonic path in his tone. It was as if he was a doctor narrating a patient's illness. At this time, after the people of Eastern Qi saw the middle-aged man, they were all shocked. Mo Tianlin even walked over, bowed to the middle-aged man, and said respectfully, "Greetings, Lord Xiao." Seeing Mo Tianlin's respectful attitude and thinking of his surname, there was only one person in Eastern Qi who could be respectfully called Lord by the disciples of the Mo family. If Chu Xiao did not guess wrong, this person should be the Grand Chancellor of Jixia Martial Arts Academy in Eastern Qi, Xiao Baiyu, a martial arts master. Jixia Martial Arts Academy had a great reputation in the land of Eastern Qi. After the imperial family surnamed Lu seized the throne of Eastern Qi, in order to win people's hearts, they established Jixia Martial Arts Academy and took out some secret martial arts methods from the imperial palace for the warriors of Eastern Qi to learn. As long as you could pass the examination of Jixia Martial Arts Academy, you could join Jixia Martial Arts Academy. As for whether you would choose to continue to serve the Eastern Qi Imperial Court after graduation, Jixia Martial Arts Academy would not force you. It was precisely because of this last point that Jixia Martial Arts Academy had attracted countless young talents to join over the years. Its scale was even dozens of times larger than when it was first established. At the same time, it also provided countless talents for the Eastern Qi Imperial Court. Xiao Baiyu was the leader of this generation of Jixia Martial Arts Academy, the Grand Chancellor of the Martial Arts Academy. He had the strength of a martial arts master, had a very unique understanding of martial arts, and was kind. Any young warrior who asked him for advice, Xiao Baiyu would not be stingy and carefully teach them. Therefore, his reputation was also very good in Eastern Qi, and even in Jianghu. Chu Xiao looked at Xiao Baiyu and frowned slightly. In the blow just now, Xiao Baiyu directly attracted the water of Mirror Lake to stop his saber gang. Obviously, he did not use his full strength. Otherwise, Chu Xiao could not continue to stand here. A figure at the level of martial arts master was not someone that Chu Xiao could fight head-on. Even if he tried his best, it was estimated that he could not resist one move of the other. Therefore, Chu Xiao directly cupped his hands and said, "Your Excellency Xiao, are you going to save her?" Xiao Baiyu shook his head with a wry smile and said, "I have seen everything just now. No one can tell who is right and who is wrong in Jianghu, whether it is revenge or not. The affairs of Jianghu are settled in Jianghu. In the end, the one standing is right, and the one who is dead is wrong. It is so simple. Therefore, I rarely care about these grievances in Jianghu, and I don't want to care about them. But I once owed Yan Huainan a favor, and he asked me to take care of his daughter in Eastern Qi. Naturally, I can't watch Yan Tingting be killed." Without saying anything, Chu Xiao directly cupped his hands and said, "Your Excellency Xiao, you can take her away. I have killed enough people today, and she is not one more." As soon as these words came out, Xiao Baiyu, who wanted to explain something, was a little stunned. Even Mo Tianlin and Xie Xiaolu looked at Chu Xiu in surprise. In their opinion, Chu Xiu's character was quite unruly, even to the point of madness. Even if Chu Xiu contradicted Chu Xiu in public, Mo Tianlin believed that Chu Xiu could do such a thing. However, now Chu Xiu did not say anything and retreated sensibly, as if the person who was full of murderous intent and wanted to kill Yan Tingting was not him. In fact, Mo Tianlin and others thought wrong. Being unruly did not mean being an idiot, and being confident was not conceited. Chu Xiu was not so arrogant that he would challenge a martial arts master. Xiao Baiyu was a martial arts master. He had a good temper and treated people kindly, so he explained so much to Chu Xiu and asked him to stop. If it were someone else, regardless of Guan Xiyu's face, it was possible to seriously injure Chu Xiu on the spot. In this Jianghu, it was always based on strength. Chu Xiu's strength was not as good as others, so he naturally had to listen to what others said. If a master showed respect to you, you should accept it. Otherwise, if you did not accept it, your end would be very miserable. Xiao Baiyu smiled. The junior in front of him was very interesting. He was like a different person from the crazy image of fighting against 100 people just now. Moreover, Chu Xiu agreed so quickly, which made Xiao Baiyu a little embarrassed. Looking at Chu Xiu, Xiao Baiyu said, "You represent the Guangzhong torture room to participate in the Divine Weapon Conference, so you will probably stay in Eastern Qi for a period of time. If you have any trouble during this time, you can come to me." Hearing Xiao Baiyu's words, everyone present looked at Chu Xiu in a different light. This guy was so lucky that he got the promise of a Wu Dao Grand Master in this way. Of course, everyone also knew that Chu Xiu could get such treatment only because the other party was Xiao Baiyu. If it were another martial arts master, as a junior martial artist, he should give face to him. How could he make any promise to a junior martial artist casually? Chancellor Xiao deserved to be Chancellor Xiao. He was really particular. Just as Xiao Baiyu was about to leave with Yan Tingting, who had been stunned, the woman next to Xiao Baiyu came over, touched Yan Tingting's face with her hand, and said in a slightly frivolous tone, "Little sister, a woman doesn't need to revolve around a man in her life. It's not worth living, let alone dying. Isn't it stupid to sacrifice the rest of your life for a dead man? If you really want to find that guy for revenge, you can rely on yourself instead of those useless men." Xiao Baiyu rubbed his head with a headache and said, "Well, Luo, stop playing. If you want to participate in the Divine Weapon Conference, just do it, but don't make trouble." Then, Xiao Baiyu left with Yan Tingting. However, at this time, Yan Tingting did not look at Chu Xiu, but at the woman. Her words kept echoing in her heart, and a trace of blush appeared on her face. After Xiao Baiyu left, everyone looked at the woman. The people in Eastern Qi were all muttering secretly, "Why did this woman come?" The Divine Weapon Conference was getting more and more complicated. At this time, Chu Xiu also looked at the woman. To be honest, it was the first time for Chu Xiu to see such a heroic woman. Although she was dressed in men's clothes, she was not a man disguised as a woman. From her figure and beautiful appearance, it could still be seen that she was a woman, but her innate heroic spirit added a bit of neutral temperament to her. At first glance, people would only think of her, not her gender. At this time, Mo Tianlin said, "Luo Feiheng, why are you here? The red kite in your hand is originally a precious weapon made by Master Mo Yezi, and it has the foundation to become a magic weapon. Why do you still come to this Divine Weapon Conference?" The woman named Luo Feiheng stretched her waist, and the man's brocade robe could not hide her towering breasts, but other warriors of Eastern Qi did not even dare to look at her, and turned their heads away. "You're right. I'm here to join in the fun." "Why? Don't you welcome me? Are you afraid of losing to me?" "Don't worry, we're old sweethearts. I'll go easy on you," Luo Feiheng said in a lazy tone. Mo Tianlin shook his head helplessly and said, "Who's old sweetheart with you? Don't talk nonsense. We're old acquaintances. In my opinion, you're the same as Xie Xiaolu, bored and bored." At this time, after hearing the name of Luo Feiheng, Chu Xiu took a deep look at her. This woman would also be a famous person in Jianghu in the future. Although her strength was not as strong as Lu Fengxian, her reputation was not less than that of Lu Fengxian. Chapter 233. Luo Feiheng was a woman, but she was a woman who was stronger than most men, whether it was in the original story or now. Currently, Luo Feiheng was at the peak of the physical invulnerability stage and was ranked 11th on the Longhu leaderboard. Even higher than Xie Xiao Lu, Luo Feiheng was born in the Luo family of Wu County, one of the 9 great families. The Luo family's strength was considered average among the 9 great families, about the same as the Mo family of Shangyang, but slightly stronger. Usually, a woman from a big family like this would be nurtured into a well-bred young lady by the family, and then married into a family or sect of equal status. Both sides would unite by marriage and increase each other's strength. But for some reason, Luo Feiheng had always been against this kind of thing since she was young. She believed that she wasn't inferior to any man, and in fact, this was indeed the case. In the entire younger generation of the Luo family, no one could compare to Luo Feiheng. In the past, the Luo family's old ancestor had some friendship with Mo Yezi, which allowed Mo Yezi to forge a weapon for a disciple of the Luo family. Because of this, the younger generation of the Luo family began to compete fiercely for this position. Everyone thought that the position would fall into the hands of the most outstanding person in the younger generation of the Luo family, Luo Feiheng's brother, Luo Feiyun. But in the end, Luo Feiheng came out of nowhere and defeated her brother in front of everyone. In the eyes of the elders of the Luo family, Luo Feiheng's actions were simply nonsense. But who would have thought that the weapon forged by Mo Yezi would be exceptionally suitable for Luo Feiheng? This weapon was the blood spear red kite that Luo Feiheng was currently wielding. Mo Yezi even asserted that this red kite would only be an ordinary 5th revolution precious weapon in the hands of others, but in the hands of Luo Feiheng, it had the potential to become a divine weapon. This was because Mo Yezi had his own rules when it came to smithing. The weapon he personally forged had to be chosen by the person, not the other way around. Therefore, since Red Kite had chosen Luo Feiheng, the weapon belonged to her. Even if the Luo clan used their status as elders to take Red Kite away, they would still offend Mo Yezi. The people of the Luo clan were not idiots to offend a master blacksmith over a weapon. They could only pinch their noses and accept it. However, ever since then, Luo Feiheng had started to make a name for himself. Not only was he invincible within the Luo family, but he had also started to roam the underworld and kill his way through it. Of course, in the Luo family, there were still many elders who believed that Luo Feiheng was a woman and was destined to marry in the future. She was talented and could be trained as an elite disciple, but the Luo family's main resources should be trained to train disciples like Luo Feiyun. Although the family did not support her, Luo Feiheng relied on her own strength to enter the Jixia Martial Arts Academy. She used the resources of the Jixia Martial Arts Academy to start her cultivation, which was why she was so familiar with Xiao Baiyu. It was not only because Xiao Baiyu knew her father and could be regarded as her elder, but also because Xiao Baiyu was also one of her teachers. After a few years, Luo Feiheng had fought her way to the 11th place on the Longhu list and was about to enter the top 10. As for her brother, who was trained by the Luo family with all their resources, he had not officially stepped into the underworld and was still practicing hard in the Luo family. It was not that he did not dare to, but that he did not have the confidence. As a disciple of the 9 great families, it would be very shameful if he did not perform well in the underworld. Although the wind-sweeping tower would place anyone on the Longhu leaderboard as long as they had a decent battle record because of their relationship with the Luo clan, it was embarrassing enough that his younger sister was ranked 11th on the Longhu leaderboard while he could not even make it into the top 50. Now, Luo Feiheng was very famous. It was not easy for a woman to have such a high status in the underworld, which was mostly dominated by men. But Chu Xiu knew that Luo Feiheng's future would not be so easy. The Luo family of Wujuan was not weak, but it was not strong either. In the later period, the Luo family encountered some crises, which led to the decline of the family. Therefore, the Luo family decided to marry Luo Feiheng into the Xiahou family of Southern Song, which was also one of the 9 great families. The Xiahou family of Southern Song was ranked in the top of the 9 great families. The Xiahou family valued Luo Feiheng very much. After all, Luo Feiheng's strength was obvious. If she married a young hero of the Xiahou family, as long as she gave birth to a child, 99% of the child's talent would be very outstanding or even amazing. As long as Luo Feiheng married into the Xiahou family would also marry a daughter to Luo Feiheng's older brother, Luo Feiyun. Both sides would be connected by marriage and support each other. In all fairness, the Xiahou family really did not have the intention to take advantage of the situation. Even if it was a marriage of equal status. It was considered kind and did not have the intention to harm the Luo family. But Luo Feiheng herself was not willing to be a tool for the marriage. In her opinion, she was better than her useless brother in every aspect. Why should she go through the marriage and let the other party enjoy the fruits of her labor and inherit the position of the family head? Just because she was a woman. Therefore, in a conflict, Luo Feiheng actually crippled Luo Feiyun in a fit of anger. Not only did she cripple his cultivation, but she also crippled his qualification to be a man. Then, she betrayed the Luo family. This incident not only caused a great blow to the Luo family, but also offended the Xiahou family. The Luo family became a laughingstock. Therefore, from then on, the Luo family began to pursue Luo Feiheng with all their strength. But in the end, Luo Feiheng became stronger and stronger. Not only did the Luo family fail to capture Luo Feiheng, but they also promoted his growth. In the end, Luo Feiheng even built a force from scratch. He named it the Bu'er Palace, which meant that he was a man of his word. In the original plot, Luo Feiheng's Bu'er Palace had developed to a point where it was even stronger than the Wu County's Luo family. It was unknown if the Luo family regretted their decision. If they chose to break the convention and let a woman, Luo Feiheng, become the successor of the Luo family, it was estimated that the Luo family would be the second ending. At this time, Luo Feiheng felt Chu Xiu's gaze on her. She raised her beautiful eyebrows and looked at Chu Xiu. You fought 100 alone. Just now you were very imposing. Ranking you 18th on the Longhu list seems to have underestimated you. Now, I really want to spar with you. But I won't bully you. After the battle just now, you've suffered quite a lot of injuries. When the deity weapon conference starts, let's spar again. Chu Xiu smiled and said, since Miss Luo is interested, this one will naturally accompany you. In all fairness, Chu Xiu admired Luo Feiheng's behavior. It had nothing to do with her gender, it was all because of her unyielding attitude. If Chu Xiu were to be in Luo Feiheng's position, he would definitely fight back even though his ability was obviously higher than that of others, but he could not get what he deserved. Fairness was never given by others. It was earned by one's own fists and the blade in one's hand. Luo Feiheng laughed heartily, without the slightest trace of a woman's bashfulness. You're not bad. You're much better than Mo Tianlin, that fellow who only knows how to drown his sorrows in alcohol. That fellow doesn't even dare to fight with me now. Mo Tianlin was embarrassed into anger and said, Luo Feiheng, are you crazy? Can't you not mention this matter? The Mo clan and the Luo clan were both Eastern Qi aristocratic clans. The distance between the two clans was also very close. Therefore, Mo Tianlin was acquainted with Luo Feiheng since childhood. In the past, the Luo clan even had the intention of matchmaking Mo Tianlin and Luo Feiheng. But after Mo Tianlin and Luo Feiheng met a few times, he directly gave up and no longer had such thoughts. A woman like Luo Feiheng wasn't someone that he could subdue. In fact, she wasn't someone that a man could subdue. Perhaps in Luo Feiheng's heart, she didn't even consider herself a woman. Therefore, after meeting a few times, the two of them directly became good friends. Of course, Mo Tianlin was still somewhat afraid of Luo Feiheng. This was because Luo Feiheng always dragged him to spar, but he just couldn't beat Luo Feiheng. Although he didn't consider Luo Feiheng as a woman, in the eyes of outsiders, Mo Tianlin always lost to a woman. This was a very shameful thing. Therefore, gradually, Mo Tianlin was somewhat afraid of sparring with Luo Feiheng. Every time Luo Feiheng asked him to spar, Mo Tianlin would directly find an excuse to refuse. Luo Feiheng casually waved his hand and said, All right, a man shouldn't be so stingy. At worst, I'll go easy on you next time. After saying that, Luo Feiheng directly grabbed the red kite in her hand and walked towards the Jizhou capital. She turned her head towards Chu Xiu and the others and asked, I want to go to Phoenix Cry Shao Xiang restaurant to drink wine? Which one of you wants to go? Mo Tianlin and Xie Shao Lu simultaneously shook their heads. Luo Feiheng turned her gaze towards Chu Xiu, but before Chu Xiu could refuse, she said, Forget it, you just had a big fight with someone, it's better for you to recuperate. Don't waste your primordial yang. Moreover, your whole body is filled with killing intent. Don't go to Phoenix Cry Shao Xiang restaurant and scare those girls. After saying that, Luo Feiheng elegantly waved his hand and directly turned around to leave. Chu Xiu turned his head towards Tianlin with a slightly strange expression and said, "She has this kind of hobby?" In the original story, he only heard that Luo Feiheng's personality was like a man's. It could even be said that she didn't even see herself as a woman, but Chu Xiu had never heard that she also liked women. Tianlin smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Chu, don't misunderstand. Although this crazy woman is crazy, when she said to drink wine, she really meant to drink wine and not do anything else. According to her, you men like beautiful girls. So of course she also likes them. A group of beautiful girls accompanying her to drink wine is naturally more pleasing to the eye than a group of stinky men." Chu Xiu nodded his head with a strange expression. This person was really unconventional. Turning his head, Chu Xiu cupped his hands towards Xie Xiaolu and Tianlin and said, "Thank you for your help just now." Previously, although his consciousness was a bit crazy, it was only in terms of his personality. It wasn't that he didn't care about anything. He was naturally aware of the movements around him. Bai Wuji wanted to hit him while he was down. If it wasn't for Tianlin and Xie Xiaolu stopping him, Bai Wuji would definitely have brought people to attack him. Chapter 234. Chu Xiu was a very vengeful person, and he would not forget the kindness shown to him. This time, it was Xie Xiaolu and Tianlin who helped him. There was no doubt about it. Although he knew that Tianlin and Xie Xiaolu were willing to help him, they had their own reasons, and they were also a little utilitarian, but Chu Xiu did not care. If Lu Fengxian was here today, then Lu Fengxian would definitely not say a word, and would directly help Chu Xiu when the Gate of Divine Martial attacked him. But unfortunately, there was only one Lu Fengxian. But no matter what, in the end, Tianlin and Xie Xiaolu helped him a lot. If it was someone else who was narrow-minded, they would probably complain about why Tianlin and Xie Xiaolu did not make a move earlier. Although Chu Xiu's heart was not big, he was not narrow-minded to this extent. Chu Xiu always looked at the results, not the process, so he remembered this kindness. Tianlin quickly waved his hand and said, "Brother Chu, there is no need to be so polite. We only came out to warn Bai Wuji. We did not do much." Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "With my condition at that time, if Bai Wuji had made a move, I would have had to pay a great price to resist. I will remember this kindness." Xie Xiaolu and Tianlin looked at each other, then cupped their hands at Chu Xiu and said, "Brother Chu, you are too polite." Chu Xiu's attitude was exactly what they wanted. Otherwise, why would they waste so much effort to save Chu Xiu? After exchanging greetings with Xie Xiaolu and Tianlin, Chu Xiu was ready to directly return to the Ji State Prefecture to temporarily recuperate in seclusion. Although Chu Xiu had shown off his prowess today by killing 2 3-flower realm martial artists in a row and taking on 100 enemies by himself, he had also expended a lot of his energy. His internal organs had also suffered from the backlash of the demonic qi, which caused him to suffer serious injuries. Fortunately, Xiao Baiyu took action in the end and directly suppressed all the remaining demonic qi in his body. Otherwise, Chu Xiu would not have the time to chat here. After returning to the Ji State Prefecture, Tianlin personally found a safe inn for Chu Xiu to recuperate. The Mo family was the local tyrant of Eastern Qi. There were many businesses that belonged to the Mo family in the entire land of Eastern Qi. The Ji State Prefecture was so big, so naturally, the Mo family also had businesses here, and the inn was one of them. 3 days later, in the inn room, Chu Xiu's internal injuries had almost healed, but he still had no intention of coming out. Instead, he continued to condense his essence, qi, and spirit, wanting to take the opportunity to step into the 3-flower realm. To be honest, this time, Chu Xiu had to thank Yan Tingting. Without her, Chu Xiu had been stuck at the peak of the physical invulnerability realm for so long, and it would probably take a long time for him to break through this bottleneck. This battle could be said to be the most intense and dangerous battle Chu Xiu had experienced in so many years. Of course, although the time when he faced the Heavenly Sin Branch leader was also relatively dangerous, at that time, Chu Xiu could only passively defend, and he only had the strength to withstand one move. Therefore, that battle did not bring much experience to Chu Xiu. This time, however, Chu Xiu had consecutively killed warriors in the 3-flower realm. In addition, he had fought against so many inner and physical invulnerability experts. Although it was not truly 1 against 100, this time, it had brought Chu Xiu enough training. After his injuries had healed, Chu Xiu began to prepare to break into the 3-flower realm. Moreover, Taoist priest Xian Cheng's teachings had also brought a lot of benefits to Chu Xiu. Although Taoist priest Xian Cheng talked about the 5 qis collecting in mind, these principles were the same as understanding one method, and Chu Xiu also had some understanding of the 3-flower realm. In the 5-tier of qi-controlling realm, the inner and physical invulnerability realms were different worlds. At the 3-flower realm and 5 qis collecting in mind, it was another world. The so-called 3 flowers at one's prominence was actually the condensation of one's own essence, qi, and spirit into one, converging into the entrance and aperture acupoints. Finally, it was sublimated to the extreme. Compared to the outer invulnerability realm and the 3 flowers at one's prominence realm, the power that could be unleashed was even more astonishing. Of course, this multiplied growth also depended on how strong the martial artist was. Even if a warrior with a weak foundation reached the 3-flower realm, their accumulation might not be as high as Chu Xiu's. For example, the 2 elders from the Divine Force sect were like this. It could not be said that they were too weak, only that they were not strong enough. Even if they reached the 3-flower realm, they were still not as strong as Chu Xiu in terms of strength. At that moment, Chu Xiu was sitting cross-legged on the bed in the inn. There was not the slightest bit of primary energy around his body. However, his aura was continuously rising. His essence, energy and soul had been condensed to the extreme, forming cyclones that continuously revolved around Chu Xiu's body, condensing within his profound entrances and acupoints. When this power reached the extreme, at this moment, Chu Xiu had completely emptied his mind, as if something had broken. When the extreme reached the end, it was sublimation. The misty cyclones were divided into 3, circling above Chu Xiu's head, and finally returned to Chu Xiu's body, causing Chu Xiu's body to seem to be shrouded in a layer of light. The 3-flower realm was completed. Opening his eyes, Chu Xiu let out a long breath. The breath he exhaled was actually also a misty and powerful spiritual qi. At this moment, Chu Xiu could be considered to have truly reached the peak of essence, qi, and spirit. After stepping into the 3-flower realm, Chu Xiu's own strength did not change in the slightest. However, if he were to attack now, the explosive power would definitely be several times or even 10 times stronger than before. After truly reaching the 3-flower realm, Chu Xiu finally understood why this realm was called the 5th tier of qi controlling. The so-called qi controlling between inner and physical invulnerability was just the simplest use of spiritual qi. The more difficult part was just the control of vigor, just like how Chu Xiu used vigor to avoid the rain on a rainy day, and Xie Xiaolu used vigor to walk on the surface of the lake. To be able to achieve this level was basically already the limit of the physical invulnerability realm. On the other hand, the 3-flower realm was already beyond the scope of using vigor to control power. It was using the spirit to control the qi. Wherever the heart went, it could move mountains and rivers. The explosive power that could be brought was naturally multiplied. Chu Xiu stretched, opened the door and walked out. Including cultivation and breaking through to the 3-flower realm, it only took Chu Xiu 6 days, which was not a long time. At this time, the God Weapon Conference had not yet begun, but there were more and more people in the G-State Prefecture. As soon as Chu Xiu walked out, he saw a waiter standing guard at the door. When he saw Chu Xiu come out, the waiter hurriedly said, "Young Master Chu, have you come out of seclusion?" Chu Xiu nodded. The waiter said, "Young Master Chu has instructed that if young Master Chu comes out, you can go to the Purple Cloud restaurant to find them. Young Master Chu and young Master Xie are both in the Purple Cloud restaurant." The Purple Cloud restaurant was also a big restaurant in the G-State Prefecture. However, Chu Xiu was a little puzzled. Why did they not go to the Dragon Gathering Pavilion? That was where a large number of warriors gathered. "Is there a problem at the Dragon Gathering Pavilion?" The waiter nodded and said, "There is a problem because there are too many warriors coming and going from Eastern Qi. If some of the warriors have grievances with each other, it is easy for them to fight each other in the Dragon Gathering Pavilion." Although there was King and Li's reputation, there were many cultivators who had conflicts in the Dragon Assembling Pavilion during this period of time. Although they were all suppressed by King and Lu, the Dragon Assembling Pavilion was in a mess. In the end, King and Lu had no choice but to temporarily close the Dragon Assembling Pavilion during the Divine Weapon Convention. Hearing this, Chu Xiu nodded. So that was how it was. But Chu Xiu still felt that something was wrong. After all, Jiang Wenyuan could be considered a local snake in Eastern Qi. His reputation as the Prince of Peace and Joy could intimidate many people. For example, When they were on the 7th floor of the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion, Jiang Wenyuan had wanted to cause trouble for him. However, because they were in the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion, he had temporarily given up. Now, Jiang Wenyuan was so angry that he directly closed the Dragon Gathering Pavilion just because some warriors had a few conflicts in the Dragon Gathering Pavilion. His psychological endurance was a little too low, right? However, Chu Xiu did not care about Jiang Wenyuan's matter, and directly asked the waiter to bring him to the Purple Cloud restaurant. The Purple Cloud restaurant was considered a big restaurant in the Ji State Prefecture, and it also had a background, but this so-called background was only a local force in the Ji State Prefecture, and it could not be brought to the surface. If warriors had grievances with each other in the Purple Cloud restaurant, they also did not dare to interfere. Therefore, the Purple Cloud restaurant simply gave up. If they wanted to fight in the Purple Cloud restaurant, they could, but if they broke it, they would have to pay double the compensation. Otherwise they would fight outside. The Purple Cloud restaurant could afford to offend those warriors who did not have a background, and some warriors with a background would not lack the Purple Cloud restaurant. Of course, face was the most important, and some would even pay several times more than the Purple Cloud restaurant. At this time, in the Purple Cloud restaurant, except for the top floor, which was occupied by the disciples of the big families, and it was quiet, the other floors were a mess. Low-level warriors who drank and played finger-guessing games, and disciples of small sects who schemed to curry favor. These people were everywhere. Among these people, there were even some warriors who opened bets, betting on the final winner of the God Weapon Convention. On the first floor of the Purple Cloud restaurant, there was a betting table, which was filled with the names of the young elites who had come to participate in the God Weapon Convention, and below it were the odds. A stout warrior with a kind smile on his face was introducing the information and odds of the young elites who had come to participate in the God Weapon Convention to the people around him, so that the people around him could quickly place their bets. This person was a hall master of the Ji State Prefecture's Wuyuan gang, Smiling Tiger Han Kuei. This Purple Cloud restaurant was actually a business of the Wuyuan gang, so Han Kuei could open a betting table here with great fanfare. Pointing to the betting board behind him, Han Kuei said loudly, "Those who want to bet, look carefully, the information and odds are all on it. Wu County's Luo family's young Miss Luo Fei Hung, 11th on the Dragon and Tiger list, holding the Blood Spear Red Kite, odds of 3-1. World Alliance's Xie Xiao Lu, 12th on the Dragon and Tiger list, odds of 2-1. There is also Guanxi Patrol Inspector Chu Xiu, who came from the Guanzhong torture room. He is a dark horse. A few days ago at the Water Cloud Temple, he fought against 100 opponents and won. Although he is only ranked 18th on the Dragon and Tiger list, his odds are the same as Luo Fei Hung, 3-1. Chapter 235. Above the Mirror Lake, during the battle at the Water Cloud Monastery, Chu Xiu had single-handedly fought against 100 people. That battle had shocked many people. Chu Xiu's strength was already seriously not in line with his ranking on the Longhu list. Therefore, he was known as the Dark Horse of this God Weapon Conference. He was even comparable to Luo Fei Hung. Just as everyone was making a ruckus on the first floor and starting to place their bets, Chu Xiu stepped into the Purple Cloud restaurant. Seeing Chu Xiu's figure, the expressions of some people who recognized Chu Xiu immediately changed. They could not help but retreat to the side and respectfully lowered their heads. There were many people watching the battle at the Mirror Lake that day. At the very least, many people in the Purple Cloud restaurant had already recognized Chu Xiu's identity. As these people began to fall silent, those who did not recognize Chu Xiu also subconsciously followed the crowd and made way for him. They did not dare to continue making a ruckus. In an instant, the entire first floor of the Purple Cloud restaurant was dead silent. Han Kuei's chubby figure quickly ran in front of Chu Xiu and said respectfully, "Young Master Chu, are you here to look for Young Master Mo and Young Master Xie? They are on the 3rd floor. I will bring you there now." Previously, Han Kuei's smile could be considered kind. However, now, Han Kuei's attitude was flattering. He looked like a pug, which was simply unbearable. No matter what, Han Kuei was a local tyrant in the Ji State Prefecture and the hallmaster of the Five Elements gang. Although he was not considered overbearing, he was very sinister. That was why he had the nickname of a smiling tiger. But now, he had become a pug. Han Kuei did not care what others thought. In his opinion, in front of such a fierce person, he would not have a problem pretending to be a pug. He could even pretend to be a great-grandson. Chu Xiu waved his hand casually and said, "No need. I can go up myself." Han Kuei nodded and watched Chu Xiu go up the stairs. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. When they couldn't see Chu Xiu anymore, someone at the side asked, "Boss Han, which sect is this disciple from? How can he be so powerful?" Han Kuei sneered and said, "Even if it's a disciple from a major family or sect, except for the top 5 on the Longhu leaderboard, no one can match this person's might. He fought against 100 people in front of the Water Cloud Monastery. Even now, blood can still be seen on the grassland." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present instantly went into an uproar. This young man with a delicate appearance and without any imposing aura, is that Chu Xiu who caused rivers of blood to flow in front of Water Cloud Temple? You really can't judge a book by its cover. Among the spectators, there were people who said that Chu Xiu was like a crazy demon at that time and was extremely terrifying. At this moment, Han Kuei muttered, "This person has actually come out of seclusion as well. I hope he doesn't cause any trouble later. Otherwise, we should learn from King and Lu and just close down the Purple Cloud restaurant." At this moment, not only were there Chu Xiu's friends in the Purple Cloud restaurant, but there were also many people who didn't like him. The Purple Cloud restaurant didn't have such strict rules as the Dragon Assembling Pavilion. Every floor was open to anyone. So when Chu Xiu stepped into the 3rd floor, the cultivators who were drinking and chatting in the restaurant immediately stopped talking. After a while, they started talking in low voices again. At this moment, Bai Wuji was also on the 3rd floor with his people. When he saw Chu Xiu arrive, he only glanced coldly at Chu Xiu but didn't say anything. The strength that Chu Xiu had displayed previously had shocked him. Bai Wuji didn't even have the courage to fight Chu Xiu head-on. However, he was not Lin Kaiyun, who would not be able to recover after being defeated once. Bai Wuji, on the other hand, was very open-minded. Even if Chu Xiu was very strong now, he had something that was stronger than Chu Xiu, and that was his background. He was the #1 person in the younger generation of the Northern Drifting Snow City. In the future, he would also be nurtured as the successor of the Drifting Snow City. But as for Chu Xiu, even if he joined the Guanzhong Torture Room now, he would only be a member of the Guanzhong Torture Room. The Guanzhong Torture Room didn't have the habit of nurturing successors. It had always been the most capable. By the time he became the successor of the City Lord and received the resources and inheritance of the Drifting Snow City, Chu Xiu would probably still be in the Guanzhong Torture Room scheming against each other. Mo Tianlin and Xie Xiaolu were sitting in the corner. When they saw Chu Xiu coming, they quickly called for Chu Xiu to come over. "Brother Chu, your injuries healed quite quickly. You've already come out of seclusion in such a short time," Mo Tianlin said. Chu Xiu picked up the wine cup and poured himself a cup of wine. "I didn't have any serious injuries, and with my talent, it's normal for my injuries to heal quickly." The main reason why Chu Xiu healed so quickly was because of the glass golden thread goo. Of course, the glazed golden thread goo was Chu Xiu's biggest secret. Other than himself, Chu Xiu would not tell anyone else. Therefore, he could only attribute his healing speed to his innate talent. After all, there were many martial artists in the Jianghu who were innately gifted like him. There's still some time before the God Weapon Conference starts. Are there any changes in the Ji State capital during this time? Chu Xiu asked. Mo Tianlin said casually, "What changes can there be? It's just that there are more people coming, and the competition is also a little higher." "Brother Chu, you should have seen the bets downstairs. You're a dark horse now, and your winning rate in the God Weapon Conference is even close to that woman, Luo Fei Hung. If that woman, Luo Fei Hung, doesn't join in the fun, I reckon you have the highest chance of winning this God Weapon Conference." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "Right, where did Luo Fei Hung go?" Mo Tianlin curled his lips and said, "She's still drinking with the girls in the Phoenix Cry restaurant. This time, she's purely here to play, and doesn't care about the God Weapon. Brother Chu, you're really unlucky this time. That woman is crazy. Even if she doesn't want the God Weapon, don't think that she will go easy on you in the God Weapon Conference. Moreover, she seems to be quite interested in you, so when the time comes, I reckon that she will go all out." After saying that, Mo Tianlin seemed to feel that his words were a little inappropriate, so he quickly corrected himself. "I said that she is interested in you, but I didn't mean that interested, don't think about it the wrong way." Chu Xiu smiled, and just when he was about to say something, Xie Xiaolu suddenly said, Brother Chu, the God Weapon Conference will start in a few days. Be careful during this time. Someone might cause trouble for you. Chu Xiu frowned and said, wasn't Yan Tingting taken away by Chancellor Xiao? Who else wants to cause trouble for me? Don't tell me someone is really stupid enough to think that if they kill me now, they can still marry Yan Tingting? Xie Xiao Lu shook his head and said, it's not because of Yan Tingting. A few days ago, a friend from West Chu told me that someone from Sword King City had come. If you had kept a low profile before this, it wouldn't have been a problem. However, you just caused such a huge commotion that everyone in the city knows about you. You even became the one with the lowest odds downstairs. Sword King City must have noticed you. Those fellows are very vengeful. That's right. Mo Tianlin frowned and said, didn't you say that Lin Kaiyun has been unable to recover? Why would someone from Sword King City come? Could it be that Feng Qi came? Xie Xiao Lu glanced at him and said, if Feng Qi came, I'm afraid that it would have already caused a big commotion in the city. The person who came is the head disciple of Sword King City's Xingzhan Hall, Sword of Great Light. Fei Mo Tianlin was surprised and said, Fei Mo is a person on the Longhu list of the previous generation. I'm afraid that he has already broken through the Three-Flower Realm by now. How could he still have the face to participate in the God Armament Conference? Xie Xiao Lu said, it's not that Fei Mo is participating directly. It's just that there are several other outstanding disciples in Sword King City in addition to Feng Qi and Lin Kaiyun. Feng Qi has learned from all 4 major sword halls, and that doesn't count. On the other hand, Lin Kaiyun is a disciple of the Battle Sword Hall, and the other 3 major sword halls also have relatively outstanding disciples. Therefore, after Lin Kaiyun was unable to recover, Sword King City naturally had to find some disciples to train. These young disciples are all new to the martial world. Sword King City was afraid that they wouldn't know the rules, so they asked Fei Mo to bring them to participate in the God Armament Conference. Although Fei Mo and Lin Kaiyun are not of the same generation, they are good friends in Sword King City. Brother Chu, you have to be careful. Although Fei Mo can't participate in the God Armament Conference, he can make it so that you can't participate in the God Armament Conference either. It was undoubtedly against the rules to kill those who participated in the conference before the conference. But the problem was that the God Armament Conference wasn't a serious competition. Wasn't it normal to settle some grudges before the conference? Although strictly speaking, Fei Mo was a disciple of the previous generation's Tiger and Dragon list and was not of the same generation as them. Fei Mo was still in his early 40s. In the martial world, he was still a member of the younger generation. At this time, Chu Xiu suddenly asked, that Fei Mo you're talking about, what was his rank on the Tiger and Dragon list in the past? Mo Tianlin thought for a moment and said, I can't remember. He definitely wasn't in the top 10, nor was he in the top 20. I think he was in the top 30. Hearing this, Chu Xiu's mouth curved into a smile. Seeing Chu Xiu's expression, Mo Tianlin hurriedly said, Brother Chu, don't look down on Fei Mo just because of this. At the same level, he was 100% inferior to you. But after all, he has cultivated for many more years than us. This accumulation isn't on the same level. The elites on the Tiger and Dragon list in the past aren't people the 2 divine martial sects 3 flowers gathering Zenith realm martial artists who died at your hands. The gap in strength between martial artists of the same level was huge, especially among the 5th level of the Qi controlling stage. Some of the weaker 5 Qi's origin realm martial artists didn't even have as strong an aura Qi as Chu Xiu when he was at the physical invulnerability stage. But Fei Mo was different. As an elite disciple of Sword King City and a former elite on the Tiger and Dragon list, Fei Mo's strength was definitely at the top among martial artists of the same level. Just as they were discussing Sword King City, several sword-wielding martial artists wearing white robes and white headscarves came up from downstairs. This immediately attracted everyone's attention. Mo Tianlin was stunned. He looked at Xie Xiaolu and said, I just realized that you seem to have the potential to jinx things. Chapter 236. Judging by the way they were dressed, it was obvious that they were the disciples of Sword King City. The leader of the group was a young man in his 30s. He carried a long sword with a transparent glass-like hilt on his back. Behind him, a young warrior who was less than 20 years old but had already reached the Xiantian realm said as he looked around, Senior Brother Fei, the warriors of the Central Plains don't seem to be that strong. Why can't we participate in the God Weapon Convention? Some of the surrounding warriors couldn't help but feel angry when they heard the arrogant words of the Sword King City disciple. However, they didn't dare to say anything. Although Sword King City wasn't located in the Central Plains, it dominated the Western Desert. Every year, the small countries offered them countless resources. Moreover, because the Western Desert where Sword King City was located was relatively remote, it wasn't as prosperous as the Central Plains. Therefore, the disciples of Sword King City had nothing to do but practice their swordsmanship all day long. As a result, the disciples of Sword King City were among the fastest in the Jianghu. Most of the warriors present would be in their 20s by the time they stepped into the Xiantian realm. However, in Sword King City, those who reached the Xiantian realm at the age of 20 could only be considered mediocre. Fei Mo said indifferently, "You brats shouldn't look down on others too much. The Central Plains is vast and has countless young elites. You can't underestimate them. You'll know when the God Weapon Convention begins. If you can suppress many young elites in the Jianghu like Junior Brother Feng, then you'll have the right to say such words." While teaching these young disciples, Fei Mo looked around and saw that the third floor seemed to be full. Just as he was about to step into the fourth floor, he saw a figure and couldn't help but stop in his tracks. Fei Mo raised his hand and asked the other disciples of Sword King City to stop. Then, he walked towards Chu Xiao and arrived in front of Chu Xiao. The powerful aura of the three-flower realm bloomed from his body. The aura around him was as sharp as sword qi. A cold light flashed in Fei Mo's eyes as he said, "You're Chu Xiao? The Chu Xiao who crippled Junior Brother Lin?" Fei Mo had never seen Chu Xiao before, but he had heard his name from Lin Kaiyun and the other cultivators of Sword King City. Because of Chu Xiao, Lin Kaiyun, the most outstanding disciple of Sword King City's younger generation besides Feng Qishao, had been unable to recover from this setback. In Sword King City, there was indeed competition between warriors of the same generation. For example, Lin Kaiyun had always been suppressed by Feng Qishao. Therefore, he felt unreconciled and hostile towards Feng Qishao. Although Fermo and Lin Kaiyun were fellow apprentices, strictly speaking, they were two generations of disciples. There was no competition between the two sides, so their relationship was quite good. Last time, when Lin Kaiyun left with Gu Zhonglu and the others, Fei Mo had told Lin Kaiyun about some taboos and common knowledge of the Central Plains warriors. After all, Lin Kaiyun spent most of his time cultivating in Sword King City, so he didn't have much experience in the pugilistic world. Who would have thought that after Lin Kaiyun came back the last time, he would be completely unable to recover from the setback. His spirit, qi, and spirit had already been beaten to the point that not even the slightest bit was left. Although his cultivation was still there, his person was already crippled. Fei Mo had a good relationship with Lin Kaiyun, but it was impossible for him to break into the Guanzhong torture room for Lin Kaiyun. Even if he had the heart to do so, he didn't have the strength to do so. In the end, after he came to the Ji Province Prefecture, he heard that Chu Xiao had single-handedly defeated 100 people here and displayed his invincible might. He was even listed as the most promising candidate to win the God Weapon Convention. Since then, Fei Mo had been suppressing his anger. Their Sword King City's outstanding disciple was crippled by Chu Xiao, but in the end, Chu Xiao became famous in the pugilistic world. This was unfair. Sitting next to Chu Xiao, Mo Tianlin and Xie Xiaolu suddenly frowned. They didn't have a good impression of the Sword King City's cultivators. These people were used to being arrogant in the Western Desert, but now they were also arrogant in the Central Plains. Did they really think that there was no one else in the Central Plains warriors? Moreover, now that they had decided to befriend Chu Xiao, and Chu Xiao was also sitting at the same table as them, Fei Mo coming to look for trouble with Chu Xiao was also looking for trouble with them. But before the two of them could speak, Chu Xiao said lightly, "I'm Chu Xiao, yes, but there is one thing you need to understand. I, Chu Xiao, will take responsibility for my actions. I won't take responsibility for things that aren't my fault. Lin Kaiyun was injured by me, but I didn't cripple him." Hearing this, everyone present suddenly went into an uproar. Before, they hadn't realized who this junior brother Lin Fei Mo was talking about was, but after hearing Chu Xiao's words, they realized that it was actually Lin Kaiyun, ranked 21st on the human list. Chu Xiao actually crippled Lin Kaiyun before? They hadn't expected that Chu Xiao would have such a glorious battle record, but his courage was really big. Crippling an elite disciple of Sword King City without giving him the slightest bit of face. This person really didn't know the principle of leaving a line for others in the future. Fei Mo said coldly. Since junior brother Lin returned to Sword King City, his spirit has been thoroughly dispirited. He has completely immersed himself in failure. Although such a person's martial arts haven't been crippled, his person has been crippled. Chu Xiu sneered and said, "That's a joke." That Lin Kaiyun was narrow-minded and couldn't think straight. What does it have to do with me? Don't you know why he attacked me in the Guanzhong torture room? Your Sword King City's people recklessly went to deal with Ghost King sex people and ended up getting killed. But that Lin Kaiyun caused trouble in my Guanzhong torture room. Does he really think that my Guanzhong torture room is a place where he can run wild? Besides, I gave him face at that time. Otherwise, do you think it's as simple as a minor injury? Hearing Chu Xiu's words, those who originally thought that Chu Xiu was ruthless and merciless immediately changed their opinion. If that was the case, then there was really nothing wrong with how Chu Xiu handled the matter. The Guanzhong torture room was also a major force. As an inspector, if Chu Xiu allowed Lin Kaiyun to cause trouble in his territory, where would he put his face? Therefore, teaching Lin Kaiyun a lesson was a very normal thing. But wasn't this Lin Kaiyun a bit too much? Wasn't he just defeated once? How could he be so traumatized that he had a mental breakdown? As a martial artist, victory and defeat were very common. On the Longhu list, apart from the young celestial master Zhang Qingjin, who hasn't lost? It must be known that even the sword chief of Sword King City, Feng Qishao, was defeated by Zhang Qingjin. Was Lin Kaiyun so arrogant that he couldn't even accept a single defeat? Of course, they didn't know that Lin Kaiyun wasn't so weak that he couldn't even accept a single defeat. He just couldn't accept losing to a person like Chu Xiu, who was born in the wilderness and had always been inferior to him. Fei Mo was silent for a moment. He naturally knew these details, but Lin Kaiyun was his junior brother, a disciple of Sword King City, and a good friend. Could it be that he would stand on Chu Xiu's side? He, Fei Mo, had always been on the side of those close to him and not reason. Looking at Chu Xiu, Fei Mo said coldly, "Chu Xiu, I didn't come here to reason with you today, but to vent my anger on you. No matter who's right or wrong in this matter, I only know that you were crippled because of my junior brother. If I don't vent this anger, where will my Sword King City's face go? My junior brother was unable to recover in Sword King City, but you were so glorious in the God Weapon Convention. My junior brother can't swallow this anger, and neither can I. I won't bully you. Today, I'll hurt you the same way you hurt my junior brother." Hearing this, everyone present was instantly dumbfounded. Sword King City was said to be overbearing, and they'd finally experienced it today. It was simply unreasonable. Right now, Fei Mo was clearly targeting Chu Xiu. Furthermore, his intentions were extremely malicious. The God Weapon Convention would begin in a few days. If Fei Mo heavily injured Chu Xiu now, it would definitely affect Chu Xiu's performance in the God Weapon Convention. At that time, Chu Xiu, who had the highest chance of winning, would become the one with the lowest chance of winning. Everyone couldn't help but shake their heads. This was the consequence of making too many enemies in the underworld. Chu Xiu had already overcome the tribulation of the divine martial sect, and he probably hadn't even recovered from his injuries yet. But now, Sword King City's people had come looking for trouble. For others, part of the reason why they participated in the God Weapon Convention was for the God Weapon, and the other part was with the intention of networking. However, Chu Xiu was different. He was purely here to settle his grudges. Mo Tianlin and Xie Xiaolu, who were sitting at the same table, frowned when they saw Sword King City's overbearing attitude. They wanted to say something, but Chu Xiu stopped them. Looking at Fei Mo, Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Face is something that you have to earn, not something that others give you. Your junior brother can't defeat me, so you came to vent his anger for him. If you can't defeat me, then wouldn't it be your master's turn next time?" Fei Mo sneered and said, "You're delusional enough to think that you can beat me? You don't know what you're talking about." As soon as his voice fell, Fei Mo didn't continue talking nonsense with Chu Xiu. Instead, he directly grabbed Chu Xiu. 5 dazzling golden lights erupted from his 5 fingers. Impressively, they were 5 incomparably sharp sword chi. Fei Mo wasn't afraid that others would say that Sword King City was overbearing and shameless. Sword King City's people had already seen through it. In the underworld, strength was the most important thing. So what if they were overbearing? As long as Sword King City's swords were sharp enough, they could shut most of the underworld's people up. Seeing Fei Mo's attack, Mo Tianlin and Xie Xiaolo's hearts trembled. Fei Mo was in the top 30 of the Long Hu list in the past. There was no need to doubt his strength. They might not be afraid of him when they were at the same level, but Fei Mo had cultivated for more than a decade more than them. His accumulation was terrifying. However, before they could make a move, Chu Xiu had already made his move. This move caused everyone's expression to change. Facing the five-sword Qi, Chu Xiu's hand seals were so fast that it was impossible to see his movements. In an instant, a dazzling Buddhist light erupted. The power condensed and did not dissipate. It was like a vajra subduing demons. Before the seals had even landed, a thunderous sound had already resounded. Seeing this scene, Mo Tianlin suddenly exclaimed, "Essence, Qi, and Soul. This is the three-flower realm." Chapter 237. After breaking through to the three-flower realm, Chu Xiu directly converged the aura on his body and did not show it off. Therefore, Mo Tianlin and the others did not pay much attention to it. They did not expect it either. After all, Chu Xiu was even younger than them. Not only was his combat strength amazing, but breaking through to the next realm required accumulation and epiphanies, all of which required a lot of time. They all had the guidance of famous teachers and the resources of the sect, but none of them had reached the three-flower realm. Therefore, they subconsciously thought that Chu Xiu would not be able to do so. Who would have thought that Chu Xiu would suddenly explode with this kind of strength? This immediately gave everyone a big fright. After Chu Xiu made his move, Fei Mo's expression immediately changed. He had underestimated Chu Xiu. Stepping into the three-flower realm in his early 20s, coupled with the combat strength he had shown before, Chu Xiu could be ranked in the top 10 of the Longhu list. Even the pride of Sword King City, Chief Sword Feng Qi Xiao, did not do better than Chu Xiu when he was the same age as Chu Xiu. However, since he had already made his move, there was no way he would stop just like that. In the previous battle at the Water Cloud Temple, Chu Xiu was still at the physical invulnerability realm. He had relied on his crazy drive to fight against 100 people alone. In the end, he had killed so many people that they were scared out of their wits and didn't dare to continue attacking him. However, in reality, Chu Xiu had suffered some injuries. Now, Chu Xiu had displayed the strength of the three-flower realm in the three-flower realm. It was obvious that he had only broken through a few days ago, while Fei Mo had stepped into the three-flower realm in the three-flower realm for several years. The sword Qi carried by the five sword fingers was extremely sharp. The five-sword Qi merged in mid-air and collided with Chu Xiu's great Vajra wheel seal. Suddenly, a burst of aura exploded, and a strong force suddenly attacked Fei Mo, causing his expression to suddenly change. Chu Xiu had only just stepped into the three-flower realm, so how could his strength be so great? It was even stronger than what he had accumulated over the years. Break! Fei Mo furiously roared and his five sword fingers exploded, turning into golden sword Qi that swirled in the air. Only then did he barely manage to block Chu Xiu's seal. However, his body was unable to withstand such a powerful force and was forced to retreat step by step. The floor beneath his feet also shattered, causing the cultivators eating on the second floor to immediately flee in panic. When the two of them exchanged blows, half of the building was destroyed. Han Kuei, who was still on the first floor, heard the commotion and immediately ran upstairs. When he saw this scene, the smiling tiger almost cried like a dog. When Chu Xiu came to the Purple Cloud restaurant just now, he felt a little uneasy. After all, his ability to cause trouble was famous in the Ji State Prefecture. He heard that on the first day he came to the Ji State Prefecture, he offended Prince Anil. After that, he began a massacre in front of the Water Cloud Temple. Now, Chu Xiu came to the Purple Cloud restaurant, which made Han Kuei a little scared. Seeing this scene, Han Kuei suddenly smiled bitterly in his heart. His worries were right. Wherever Chu Xiu appeared, trouble followed. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have coveted these small advantages and just closed the restaurant. The Purple Cloud restaurant was not like the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion, which was covered with formations everywhere. They could fight however they wanted. If they really let these two fight to their heart's content, the entire Purple Cloud restaurant would probably be destroyed by them. Masters, calm down. Let's calm down. Why can't we sit down and talk things over? Why do you have to fight? Facing Chu Xiao and Fei Mo, Han Kuei didn't even dare to walk over to stop them. He could only earnestly beg from behind. Unfortunately, whether it was Fei Mo or Chu Xiao, neither of them paid attention to Han Kuei. Standing up, Chu Xiao directly rushed toward Fei Mo. The crimson saber in his hand shone in the entire Purple Cloud restaurant, appearing evil and magnificent. As the saber fell, Chu Xiao said coldly, "Back in the Guanzhong torture room, I didn't kill Lin Kaiyun because I gave face to Sword King City and didn't want to cause trouble. However, since you don't want to accept my kindness, don't blame me for being ruthless. Aren't you close brothers with Lin Kaiyun? Don't you want to get revenge for him? Well then, since Lin Kaiyun has crippled his spirit, I will cripple your body today. I'll make you a cripple so that you can accompany your junior brother Lin." Arrogant. Fei Mo's eyes showed a touch of coldness. Just now, he didn't expect Chu Xiao to have stepped into the three-flower realm. Therefore, he suffered a loss because of a moment of carelessness. However, he didn't even draw his sword just now. He only pointed his sword at his enemy. It should be noted that 70% of the combat power of the warriors of Sword King City was based on the long sword in their hands. The long sword on Fei Mo's back didn't have a scabbard. Instead, it was wrapped in linen, looking a little simple. However, as he held the long sword in his hand, his gang qi erupted, shattering the linen. A touch of bright light instantly lit up the entire third floor. Fei Mo's sword was an extremely beautiful long sword. The body of the sword was golden and translucent like amber, shining with a mesmerizing luster. As Fei Mo poured his astral energy into the long sword instantly shone with a dazzling radiance, looking extremely gorgeous. The name of his sword was Light. Under the extreme brilliance of the sword, it could kill all evil. The blood-refined divine gang, which carried a strong bloody aura, collided with the dazzling sword momentum. Suddenly, a violent explosion of gang qi was heard. The sky was filled with crimson saber aura that fell like a rainstorm from Chu Xiao. The saber momentum was endless, and it was so dense that it was suffocating. A look of surprise appeared in Fei Mo's eyes. Chu Xiao had only stepped into the three-flower realm a few days ago. How could his inner force be so strong? It was so strong that it could even compete with him and even slightly suppress him. Fei Mo shouted, and the sword of light in his hand bloomed with endless brilliance. The sword light was so bright that it looked like the sun. Any darkness and evil would be completely destroyed under this extremely bright sword momentum. As the powerful sun-like sword momentum fell, everyone saw the dazzling light erupt, and countless blood-colored saber auras were extinguished under the light. At this moment, Fei Mo actually had the upper hand. As a figure in the top 30 of the Longhu list of the previous generation, Fei Mo still had some skills. Although he was kicked out of the list and couldn't step into the three-flower realm on the list, he still had some skills. Fei Mo was from the Xingjian Hall, and he was best at various sword techniques. He was the most powerful when it came to sword techniques. His bright sword of light was powerful and heavy. It could be said to be an impeccable sword technique with no weaknesses, except for the large consumption of internal force. However, he was still a disciple from the Sword King City. For disciples of big sects like them, the foundation was the most important. Fei Mo's internal force cultivation was also very strong. Coupled with the fact that he had stepped into the three-flower realm for several years, he could completely control this powerful sword technique. However, at this moment, under the endless brilliance, a black light bloomed. Like a flower blooming on the other side of hell, the blade slashed open the door to hell. Endless demonic aura and deathly will burst out. Chu Xiao slashed out the second blade of the Avicii Path's 3 blades. He had become very familiar with this blade after absorbing demonic aura into his body twice, and its power was even greater than before. Coupled with the fact that he had reached the three-flower realm, the explosive power was even more amazing. Under this blade, the light was instantly torn apart by the darkness, and the sound of the saber aura breaking through the wind seemed to be the roar of evil spirits. Everyone only heard a loud bang, and the sword momentum of the bright sword of light was instantly extinguished. Fei Mo's figure was directly blown away by Chu Xiao's powerful blade, smashing the wall of the Purple Cloud restaurant and falling on the street. There was a hint of coldness in Chu Xiao's eyes. He moved his body and chased after Fei Mo onto the street. When Han Kuei saw this, he wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead. He thought to himself that the two of them had finally left. They had only destroyed one floor and one wall. He was already lucky that they hadn't destroyed the entire Purple Cloud restaurant. At this moment, the people in the Purple Cloud restaurant saw this scene and immediately walked to the window to watch. The warriors on the street also immediately moved away, looking at Fei Mo with curious eyes. At this moment, Fei Mo could be said to be extremely miserable, completely lacking the domineering appearance he had before. His strength was considered strong among those in the three-flower realm, so he was not killed or seriously injured after taking the second of Chu Xiu's 3 blades of Avici. However, at this moment, he was not feeling good. Although the saber aura was blocked, the cold demonic chi saber will entered his body and stirred up the meridians in his body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Some of the warriors on the street recognized Fei Mo. After all, Sword King City's attire was very eye-catching. They were still wondering who was so strong that they could beat up a warrior from Sword God Mountain like this. On the other side, Chu Xiu directly jumped down from the 3rd floor. He held the great Vajra wheel seal in his hand, and his eyes flashed with killing intent as he directly attacked Fei Mo. Previously in the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiu had saved Sword King City some face and did not go too far. However, who knew that Sword King City would not take the face he had given them this time? Since that was the case, they could not blame Chu Xiu for being ruthless. Previously, Mo Tianlin felt that Chu Xiu always wanted to go to the extreme when he attacked. In fact, his guess was right. This was Chu Xiu's style. He would either not do anything, or he would go to the extreme. Although he was cautious in his thinking, he was too indecisive. If one did not have the strength to go to the extreme, it was reckless. However, if one had the strength, it was decisive. This time, he came to the God Weapon Conference to represent the reputation and image of the Guanzhong torture room. The more power he made, the happier the Guanzhong torture room would be. This was because Chu Xiu was making the Guanzhong torture room proud. Now that he had crippled Fei Mo, it also meant that the Guanzhong torture room had crippled Fei Mo. When the people from Sword King City came looking for trouble, if Guan Xiu did not help him, she would be slapping herself in the face. It would seriously affect the hearts of the people in the Guanzhong torture room. Chapter 238. Chu Xiu's great Vajra wheel seal came crashing down with incomparably fierce power. The Buddha's light contained dense killing intent. The sword of light in Fei Mo's hand bloomed with even more intense and dazzling aura. However, under Chu Xiu's ferocious seal technique, it shattered with a loud bang. Fei Mo's sword momentum had always been majestic and oppressive. He didn't expect that he would one day be suppressed by a warrior who had just stepped into the three-flower realm. After a series of fierce attacks, Fei Mo retreated step by step. He couldn't resist Chu Xiu's violent offensive at all. However, Fei Mo was still tough. After all, he was an elite disciple from Sword King City. He was also once ranked on the Longhu list. Even if he was at a disadvantage now, he didn't admit defeat or beg for mercy. Perhaps he could tell from how ruthless Chu Xiu was when he attacked that Chu Xiu would definitely cripple or kill him this time. Of course, whether it was crippling or killing Fei Mo didn't make much difference. For warriors, especially those with status and level like Fei Mo, crippling him was even crueler than killing him. Lin Kaiyun was just taking things too hard. Once he pulled himself together, he would still be an outstanding disciple of the younger generation in Sword King City. However, if Fei Mo's martial arts were crippled, he would be crippled for the rest of his life. Now that Fei Mo had been forced into a desperate situation by Chu Xiu, he no longer hesitated. He directly spat out a mouthful of blood and attached the scorching power to his long sword. In an instant, his sword of light bloomed with a blood-red brilliance. And that wasn't the end of it. Bloodlight flowed in Fei Mo's hand as the power of qi and blood was continuously poured into his sword of light, causing the originally amber long sword to have the same material as the red sleeve blade in Chu Xiu's hand. With a furious roar, the blood-red long sword in Fei Mo's hand slashed down, and the blood-red sword aura exploded. Although it did not have the sharpness of the sword aura continued for several feet, bringing with it the afterglow of the blood-red setting sun. Although it seemed inconspicuous, it contained an extreme power. Fei Mo's attack, which was burning the power of his blood and qi, fell down. Like a scarlet setting sun, the aura qi contained a terrifying power. Even Chu Xiu's blood-refined god aura couldn't resist such a desperate move. Therefore, at this moment, Chu Xiu immediately used the internal binding seal and retreated. However, Fei Mo's move was not easy to dodge. No matter how fast a person was, they could not be faster than astral chi. Just as Chu Xiu retreated, Fei Mo shouted, "Go to hell!" With a loud bang, Fei Mo poured all the power of chi and blood in his body into the Sword of Light. The Sword of Light shattered, and the scattered sword aura sealed the surrounding space with the sharp fragments of the Sword of Light, making it impossible for Chu Xiu to dodge or evade. The desperate attack of an expert at the peak of the Three-Flower Realm was still very scary. As an outstanding disciple of the previous generation of Sword King City, Fei Mo still had a trump card. At this moment, Fei Mo's face was pale. Even the precious weapon he had been nurturing for more than a decade, the Sword of Light, had been completely destroyed. Even if this move could seriously injure Chu Xiu, he would still suffer a great loss. However, at this moment, Fei Mo was shocked to find that Chu Xiu, who was surrounded by countless blood-red sword aura, had formed a seal with both hands. When he blasted out the seal, the space several feet around him was instantly suppressed by a powerful astral chi. Formation Formula. Wisdom Fist Seal. Each style of the Fast 9 Words formula had its own charm. If the Great Vajra Wheel Seal was the ultimate power, and the Internal Binding Seal was the ultimate speed, then the Wisdom Fist Seal was the ultimate control of astral chi. The Wisdom Fist Seal could cover the sky and cover all directions. This was actually a kind of ultimate control of astral chi, turning everything around into one's own astral chi domain. Although it was very small and could only last for a short time, it was enough for Chu Xiu to use it as a killing move. Therefore, when everyone thought that Chu Xiu would be seriously injured or even killed under the countless blood-red sword aura, Chu Xiu relied on the powerful might of the Wisdom Fist Seal to freeze all the blood-red sword aura in mid-air. Although it was only for a short moment, the red sleeve blade in Chu Xiu's hand had already slashed out a sky full of blood-refined divine aura, shattering the sword aura wrapped around the fragments of the precious weapons one by one. His figure directly rushed out of the sword aura and slashed down with killing intent. Facing Chu Xiu's slash, the martial artists of Sword King City had lost 70% of their cultivation. Facing Chu Xiu's slash, Fei Mo, who was almost at the end of his rope, pointed with his sword finger. However, the light sword aura was easily shattered by Chu Xiu's blood-refined divine aura. Just when everyone thought that Fei Mo would definitely be killed by Chu Xiu's slash, Chu Xiu suddenly withdrew his saber. Some people who didn't know Chu Xiu nodded. It seemed that Chu Xiu still had some sense of propriety. He knew that killing Fei Mo would offend Sword King City, so he wouldn't go to the extreme. However, the martial artists who had seen Chu Xiu's attack in front of the Water Cloud Monastery were stunned. Would Chu Xiu stop? This wasn't his style. It must be known that Yan Tingting was Yan Huainan's most beloved daughter. When Chu Xiu attacked her, he didn't show the slightest mercy. If it weren't for the timely arrival of the martial institution's High Chancellor, Lord Xiao Baiyu, Yan Tingting would have been killed by Chu Xiu. Would he show mercy to Fei Mo now? No, this definitely wasn't Chu Xiu's style. At this moment, although Chu Xiu withdrew his saber halfway, he directly slammed his palm down. His palm glittered with a purplish-black evil radiance. The great purple sun hand shot out and accurately imprinted itself on Fei Mo's dantian. The power of the purple sun demonic flame instantly erupted and completely shattered Fei Mo's dantian. Moreover, this wasn't the end. Chu Xiu's hand grabbed Fei Mo's arm and used the great sacrificial grappling hand, instantly twisting Fei Mo's arm into a twisted dough twist. Fei Mo didn't even have time to scream before he fainted and was directly thrown to the ground by Chu Xiu. Fei Mo looked like a ragged doll, looking extremely miserable. Clapping his hands, Chu Xiu said lightly, "I'm a very fair person. Since you didn't plan to kill me, then I'll spare your life. There aren't many people who can survive under my hands." When they witnessed this scene, the spectators instantly went deathly silent. They were wrong. Chu Xiu hadn't changed his character, and he'd gone from bad to worse and acted even more ruthlessly. Look at Fei Mo's current appearance. You might as well just kill him like this. For a cultivator, one's own strength and martial arts were everything. If one's martial arts were crippled, the feeling of falling from the clouds was simply worse than death. It was a double torture of the body and spirit. Moreover, even if one's martial arts were crippled, there was still a chance to cultivate it back. For example, there were some secret techniques in the pugilistic world that could be used to rebuild one's dantian. There were also some rare spirit medicines that could rebuild one's dantian and so on. But Chu Xiu's viciousness was that he had made double preparations. Not only did he shatter Fei Mo's dantian, but he also directly twisted Fei Mo's arms. If a swordsman couldn't even pick up his own sword, then what use was it even if he recovered his cultivation? Moreover, such heavy injuries required a shocking amount of rare spirit medicines. Even if he was the son of Sword King City's sect, Sword King City probably wouldn't pay such a huge price to save him. At this time, when the other disciples of Sword King City saw that their senior brother had been crippled by Chu Xiao, they revealed a wisp of disbelief. As an elite on the Longhu list of the previous generation, Fei Mo's reputation in Sword King City was almost as great as Lin Kaiyun's. It could be said that he was the idol of these young disciples who hadn't started to roam the pugilistic world. But in the end, their senior brother Fei Mo, whom they usually admired, was easily defeated and even crippled. This was something they couldn't accept no matter what. Senior brother. The Sword King City's disciples immediately rushed over and helped Fermo up before feeding him medicine. The other disciples unsheathed their swords and looked at Chu Xiao with bloodshot eyes. Although some of the disciples' swords were trembling, Chu Xiao didn't dare to attack Fermo. The quality of the disciples of Sword King City was really good. In the face of Chu Xiao, who had just crippled their senior brother, these disciples didn't choose to run away. They even dared to stand in front of him and draw their swords. Although everyone could see the fear in their hearts, none of them dared to run away or beg for mercy. This was the foundation of a great sect's disciple. Not only did they have cultivation methods and martial Dao inheritances, but they also had the unique spirit of a great sect's disciple. Although the cultivators of Sword King City were a bit overbearing, it was undeniable that as swordsmen, they would rather break than bend. Kneeling and begging for mercy in the face of a powerful enemy, people without the slightest backbone weren't worthy of being called swordsmen. At this time, Mo Tianlin and Xie Xiaolu also arrived at Chu Xiao's side. Mo Tianlin said in a soft voice, "Brother Chu, forget it. Don't go too far. Let them go." Mo Tianlin wasn't really a kind person, but there were some unspoken rules in the Jianghu. Unless it was the kind of enmity that could destroy a family or sect, both sides generally wouldn't attack a young disciple who hadn't officially stepped into the Jianghu. He did this to remind Chu Xiao not to break the rules. Chu Xiao nodded indifferently and said, "They're just a bunch of juniors who can't even hold their swords properly. I didn't intend to kill them. Let them carry that guy back to Sword King City to report." Mo Tianlin breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Chu Xiao wasn't as crazy as he was last time. But just as Chu Xiao and the others turned to leave, a figure suddenly appeared behind one of the Sword King City's disciples. That disciple didn't notice it at all. Then, the figure reached into the man's back with one hand and dug out the man's heart. Still holding the beating heart in his hand, the figure smiled strangely and said, "Sword King City's cultivators are full of vitality. This heart is a great tonic. Wouldn't it be a pity to let it go? If you don't want it, give it to me." You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.